Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Stream of Chaos. Thank you for joining us on this fine evening where we are.
Evening.
And if you're not in Australia, it is very unlikely to be an evening. So thank you for joining us at whatever time you have decided to join us. Joining me here this evening are my two fine friends who have joined me several times before. To my left over here is...
Hello, my name is Rachel. I still don't know what we're meant to say in these introductions. Australians, particularly young women, tend to raise the pitch of their sentences at the end, so it sounds like they're always asking a question. Jamie, please help me.
I'll do my best, but I'll do my best now. On to my right over here.
Hello, I'm David. We've been in several of these now.
We've done at least 3.
Yeah, pushing that. And we are now going to travel back in time to Berlin.
Well, let me introduce that. We are going to be playing today. You may have seen us tweet about it or talk about it. We are jumping in to... Oh, before I start with that, Jackson is not joining us today, but he will be back, and we will miss him terribly while he is gone.
Yes.
We're going to be jumping in today to one of Chaosium's most recently published books, Berlin, the Wicked City, which takes place in Berlin in the Weimar Republic. And it is an incredibly interesting time, not just for Berlin, but for the entire world. Everything is rife with political upheaval and social change, and it is a fantastic setting to dive into some Call of Cthulhu action and to really talk about the mythos and play some really fun games. So we're going to be creating new characters and jumping into a campaign for Berlin, the Wicked City. We're going to be showing you a lot of what the book has to offer. We are going to be playing through all of the campaigns that are made available in the book, plus a little bit of extra stuff, if we survive that long. Now you can get Berlin the Wicked City from the Chaosium website, so check that out if you're so inclined. But if you want to see what's inside the book, let's get started right here. So first, before we do anything, before we make characters, there's 2 things that we need to get out of the way. The first thing is that we had a great time doing our last fantastic season of Call of Cthulhu in Arkham, Massachusetts, and it was very fun and it was very light. Berlin, the Wicked City, is a little bit of a darker book. There is some mature flavors to it. So consider this a content warning of sorts, and also an opportunity to talk about how to deal with content warnings in general when you're playing RPGs. We had a discussion between ourselves about this to make sure that we all knew what was going to be happening at the table. We all knew what the kind of stories that were going to be told were. And we are all aware of what's going to happen, and you should totally run those kind of practices too when you run potentially mature content at your RPG table. Monty Cook Games put out a really good article about this recently, which I have not read, but will plug anyway. But yeah, so a little bit of a content warning for those that this does deal with some more mature themes, but we'd still love to have you join us if you feel comfortable experiencing those kind of stories. The second thing is a question for you two. What do you know about Berlin? Give me everything you know.
It feels unfair.
So we'll start with David because I want to bully him.
No.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I watched Atomic Blonde recently.
Good.
And that was sweet. And that's set in Berlin, although it's Cold War. So it is medium related. And basically, I think it seems punk as hell. And they go around cracking skulls. And they're about to have a really rough time in... When is this set?
We are playing... The campaign that we will jump into starts in 1921.
So they had a rough time.
Yes. And there's more
Oh
rough
yeah,
times.
I got
it's been like 18
Exactly.
months.
Yeah.
I did this really awkward little earlier. I'm gonna go shut that door real fast. I didn't want to do it during the content warning. That would have felt rude. Just me fucking off.
Absolutely.
What do I know about
Yeah, let's put you on the
Berlin?
spot. What do you know about Berlin?
I know that they had a wall.
Yes,
There's
there's
a wall involved.
Was it there at this point in time?
No, the wall is not there at this
it's
point in
not
time.
yet.
That's it after World War II.
That's
There's
the one
no
that they were
wall.
taking down in
Okay.
Atomic Blonde.
Exactly. So, well, let's jump in with a little bit of description of Berlin and I guess Germany as a whole. at this time. And there's some fantastic resources contained within the Berlin book, which I'll be referring to as I go through this description. So Berlin is a fascinating city, and it's very different from a lot of other European cities. The same in a lot of ways, but also has a lot of different parts. A big thing that leans into that is that Germany is a more recently formed nation than a lot of the other major European nations. At the time, there are people living who will still remember the early days of Germany's formation, which was in the 19th century, whereas these other countries have been around for many, many hundreds of years. Germany as a whole was a lot of scattered different regions and provinces, all with their own cultural identities that all form together, and those identities and those differences kind of linger around. So Berlin has a different feel than you might get in other parts of Germany. But we're going to be focusing specifically on Berlin. At this time, Berlin has just gone through the Great War, the war to end all wars, as was thought at the time, and it was an incredibly damaging war for the entirety of Europe. But Germany was also hit with an additional thing afterwards, which was the Treaty of Versailles, which was a treaty that basically had the Germans pay a lot of war reparations to a lot of the rest of the world. So things are not going great in Germany at this point. They are still recovering from the devastation that was wrought on Europe as a result of the war, but they also have to pay out these huge amounts of money. And there is a period called the Great Recession where money just inflates to this insane degree.
Yeah, someone in chat mentioned hyperinflated currency.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please jump in chat with any suggestions. We would love to hear. But yes, you're exactly right. The hyperinflation of the currency was a major problem.
So it's like wheelbarrows of money for bread.
Exactly.
What's their currency?
I believe at the time it is the Deutschmark, and I will confirm that to make sure that I have not gotten
try and spell that.
The term wrong. But yes, absolutely. People are, doing black market trade of other currencies. The industry is just kind of completely torn apart. The middle class vanishes basically in a single year. And people's life savings are just totally wiped out. When we play the game, the recession is not in its full worst swing at this stage yet in 1921, but the first steps of it have begun to appear. Mm-hmm. So as you imagine Berlin at this time, imagine boarded up houses, imagine legless veterans of the Great War lining the streets shaking beggars' caps, imagine sort of tight, narrow streets and people bustling around. There is an incredible sense of upheaval throughout the whole city, and there are huge numbers of extreme far right and extreme far left political agents that are trying to cause unrest all throughout the city. There is a huge proliferation in crime, prostitution, drug use. It really is the wicked city. And I will read a quote that is contained within the book at this point. So the city of Berlin, I recognized, had a definite color of its own. It had plainly become a world metropolis. Now Berlin had acquired an authentic entity. It resided in the young and was composed mostly of a direct recognition, a faintly bitter but undisturbed acceptance of all the realities of existence. It was an attitude nowhere that I could see irradiated by hope. It was a customary optimism. The romantic confidence of youth were absent in Berlin. So much the bearing of the young showed had failed them, turning out to be false or hypocritical or insubstantial, that they had concluded celebrated assurances and rewards were lies. That's a quote from Joseph, and I'm going to butcher a lot of German names throughout the entirety of this campaign, so I intensely apologize for that. Joseph Hergesheimer, I believe it's the name. So Berlin is not in a fantastic state. And the people who live there, the locals, are suffering to a certain extent. But there is also another extremely large population that is influxing into Berlin at this time. And these are tourists who are coming from Sweden, from England, from France.
Tourists?
Tourists are coming in because basically Berlin kind of becomes this almost Las Vegas-esque lawless place where people can get anything. People were traveling there for reasons like sex tourism. People were traveling there for because it was this wild west of an area where people could make themselves or completely fall by the wayside. It was described a lot like New York. You know, people would come there, and if you made it in Berlin, you were going to be super rich, but you could very easily get chewed up and spat out by the city. So there's this huge wave of tourism that's coming in, and there's also a lot of people that are coming in from Eastern Europe who are trying to make a new life, and a lot of these people are not treated very well in Berlin at this time, especially since a lot of them don't have the language skills to exist within the city. They're not registering with the police when they come in, which is a requirement of the time, and they're sort of dropping off and disappearing, and it's all in a little bit of a upheaval. There's some cool things too. For example, Berlin at this time became a haven for the LGBTIQ plus community. So there's a huge influx of people who are either being more open about their sexuality or who are coming in from all over the world because Berlin is an accepting place. There is a statistic contained within the book that in 1922, 100,000 men were openly gay in Berlin, but by 1924, 400,000 men were openly gay in Berlin. So the population is exploding there, and Berlin has basically supplanted Paris as a haven for people of all kinds of traditions that were not necessarily accepted by the majority of the population. So it's an interesting time, and we're going to be making characters in this space. So let's talk about character creation in Call of Cthulhu. Remember that you can be playing a local, you could be playing someone from Berlin, born in Berlin, or someone who has moved there. You can be from overseas, you can be anywhere. We're going to jump in, we're going to get to character creation, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, in the middle of the table, you should have some character sheets. Perfect. Using these character sheets, we're going to roll up some stats. Now, this is the system that where you can roll up your characteristics for your investigator, and it's going to decide all of the key elements like their strength, their dexterity, their constitution, all of that stuff. Now, there's a lot of rules where you can kind of skew this to make sure that you end up happy. You can get re-rolls, you can swap things around. We're not going to do any of that. What you roll is what you get, and you're going to have to learn to deal with it. So, I would like the two of you to grab 3d6 to start with.
I have one.
How about 1d6 3 times?
That works just as well. I'll tell you what, why don't you, we'll take it in turns, you'll both roll your strength, roll it 3 times, add up the number, and give me the final number.
Fuck, I rolled a 1.
Oh, good job.
Oh, I rolled another one.
Ooh.
I rolled a 2. 4.
4 strength, my god. That is not
What
great.
did you roll?
I got a 12. I'm
So
pretty
60 and
Grandma.
20. Which is not fantastic. We will continue along. We will stick to our guns. So 20 strength and 60 strength. For people who are not familiar with how the stats work in Call of Cthulhu, between 40 and 60 is basically your average range. Once you fall outside that, you start to be, the other side of the bell curve. If you are around 20, you start to get to the very frail. In some
grandma.
way. You could very well. You might not want to be someone's grandma because as you pick your age, you actually have to reduce your physical statistics. So if you want to survive, I suggest you be very young. Continuing on.
It's got the like.
4-year-old
If
child.
you're under 30%, you're technically decrepit. I want to find the one for strength because I think it's like, what's your strength?
20.
You are puny or weak. Technically, you're just above puny and weak.
Okay.
Alright, so
I
jumping through, so
very
strength,
small.
obviously, physical characteristics, we've talked about that before. We'll continue on with some dexterity. Before you two roll, just so people are aware, this is going to be the session 0, the episode 0 of Berlin, where we will roll our characters and we'll get into things a little bit, and we'll sort of get all the hooks for the story. But character creation will form a significant part of this, and if you're in chat, you can totally get involved and help build some of these characters.
Yeah,
We'll
give
be
me
talking
ideas.
about all kinds of stuff. So, dexterity, 3d6.
9. Zvi. 6 so far.
Oh my god.
2.
662,
It's
not bad.
14.
14, 70,
I
yeah.
rolled 9.
9 total, so
Yeah.
45 and
It's not
70.
terrible.
No, 45 is good. You were still absolutely within the average range at 45. So you are averagely dexterous. At 70, you begin to get on the You're a little quick. You're a little sly. You're a little fast. Okay. Next we can do Constitution. So this is your physical health, your hardiness, how
Goodbye.
it resist poison, your all that kind of stuff.
That's.
Oh fuck!
Oh my
What
god.
the fuck?
What have you
I
got?
rolled 18.
What the hell?
It's another.
What is happening?
It's
was
another
hard.
Alexander. You've got it.
But you've got like no
strength.
What does that look
Well,
like?
that was actually pretty close to what Alexander, our massive Russian, got in the last game. So
Yeah.
you are someone who is not physically strong, but you are hardy. You are absolutely unyielding.
That's insane. I got 8, so I'm like,
Fuck.
I'm fine.
Yeah, you're alright.
So no strength. What's your dex?
45.
I think your size is gonna help to paint this picture because I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm looking at.
So what does an 18 translate to?
Gosh.
19.
Well, have you got the detail in the book there if you're
Oh.
open on the page?
It's 90 is the number,
Yeah,
but it's basically like it was
so 90 is amongst the world's best.
90 is
so
the
you are
highest
one
you
of the
can roll.
most you are one of the most hardy people
Except pointing
on the
at the
planet.
obvious.
You are refusing to yield. What you could potentially do, for example, would be a great war veteran, someone who has been injured, who is not strong, but has fought through so many injuries that they are unyielding and they will never give up.
Yeah, they're kind of like it's like those people that just refuse to die. It doesn't matter what it is until you decide you're willing to. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
At 90, you shrug off colds, hardy and hail, which I think is underplaying it.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
I shrug off colds most of the time. That's fine.
Oh, gee. If you can think of an interesting combination of a high constitution, extremely high constitution, and low strength, please put it in chat. We'd love to hear it. Continuing on. Next, we're going to roll your power. Now, your power is your willpower. It is your sanity. It is all of those kind of things. It's a very important statistic in a game where sanity is rather key. 3d6.
14.
14.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, so that's 70. You are pretty well put together. You threw your head back in shame. So,
Sick.
oh, fun. 35. No, 30. Don't tell anyone I messed up my times table. My high school maths teacher will
So
come and
I'm-
beat me up.
Yeah, I'm fairly resilient.
So you are more of in the Alexander range of sanity. You are particularly hardy though, so you should be absolutely fine.
Neat.
I think I'm in the mirror. I think my
Yeah, you were pretty-
Woolen was like
Woolen was not. Yeah, yeah.
nuts. I think I had the same sanity score.
Right. Well,
Terrific.
power is also linked with creativity and sort of attunements to the more metaphysical side of things. So you might be a little more spiritual. You might be a little more creative. Musicians, when they're using the there's a very loose occupation system. You can design your own occupation, but if you use one of the pre-generated ones, musicians, artists, and priests all use power as one of their defining
And I think you'll find so do
characteristics.
zookeepers.
Yes, they do, because they're dealing with animals all the time. Thank you very much.
That's alright. You wouldn't want to forget them.
Continuing on, next we are going to do appearance.
Berlin Zoo.
Appearance is also 3d6.
6. 6.
Oh, if you get 18, I'm going to...
2.
Still pretty good. 14.
I rolled 7.
7. So no, 7 is 35. You
Yeah,
are...
I'm just
So
kinda
you're not...
You're a little ugly.
I'm a...
Well,
I'm handsome.
you are handsome.
And my
Handsome
character's
queen.
not bad either.
Ooh. Fantastic.
Did you know appearance is the most powerful skill or trait or whatever in Call of Cthulhu?
Cool, mine's
That is
that
not
good.
true. But it is as all the other skills, it has its applications and its usages.
Berlin Zoo opened in 1844.
It did. In fact, well,
Oh
you
no,
might be
that
visiting
can't
the
be
Berlin Zoo.
relevant.
Can't be relevant at all. Now, continuing on. We're next, I'm going to get you to put one of your dice to the side. We're going to be using 2d6. And these will determine some of your other statistics. So I want you to roll 2d6 and add 6 for your size. Did you get a 6?
What'd you get?
I'm not saying shit. I have my final number. Oh, fuck.
Did you roll a 6 and a 1?
Yeah, I rolled a 17.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my god.
It's Alexander. You made it. It's Alexander's long lost cousin. I don't know what a German version of Alexander would
Well,
be.
but Alexander's Russian.
Yeah, exactly. Not too far. Yeah.
Alex sounds kind of German. No, it doesn't. I got a 3, so plus 6, 9. Cha-chang.
Well done.
Now, don't applaud that.
Everyone applaud that.
Let's round down for average, right?
Yes.
So hang on, what was my 17? Was that times 5?
So you'll have 85.
Yeah.
I am below average.
Fuck man, I'm actually kind of massive. Oh fuck. Yeah, a 90 con. Oh my god.
And you brought it back. The summon chat was like, your first roll was just getting out the bad luck, and that really was the case because you rolled lowly on that, and then pretty much everything you smashed
on
right.
appearance, but I mean,
Who
I
gives a
feel like I can get by.
Well, when you're presumably the size of a truck and incredibly hardy,
and in,
maybe.
like,
Yeah.
Berlin, the worst city. I'm sure I can
It's
get
funny
by
how
being ugly.
appearance is really unimportant until someone has high appearance, and then they try to bring it up at every.
But I'm hot.
Let me
I
read
don't
you.
want to try.
Before we roll the next stat, let me read you another quote from this book. And now we come to the most lurid underworld of all cities, that of post-war Berlin. Ever since the declaration of peace, Berlin found its outlet in the wildest dissipation imaginable. The German is gross in his immorality. He likes his Huldwelt or underworld pleasures to be devoid of any culture or refinement. He enjoys obscenity in a form which even the Parisian would not tolerate, which was written by Netley Lucas in Ladies of the Underworld.
What? Where was he from?
Presumably England, if I had to guess.
I was hoping, yeah, talking
Well,
about the
because he
French
was-
and
I mean,
the Germans.
Yeah.
The only thing worse than the French.
Germans. Netley Lucas, if anyone wants to look at it.
I'm googling.
them
How do you
up.
spell it?
Netley Lucas. Netley space Lucas. This was written in Ladies of the Underworld in 1927.
English.
English.
He was, and I quote, a confidence trickster.
Who's a con man? There
He
you
is a
go.
con man.
Well, obviously, nothing that he said can be taken literally then, you know. Here, clearly, Germany is a lovely place, and Berlin is completely fine.
The self-called aristocrat of crooks, which is a tight as
Oh
hell
my
title.
lord.
And I might have just changed my
No,
character.
no, it's mine.
The aristocrat of crooks. Journalism is the only honest profession for which a criminal life is a good training. What a great guy!
Oh, man.
That's-
Oh.
He was exposed for fabricating stories.
That wouldn't fly with a lot of people these days.
Alright. So, now let's roll your intelligence. So this is 2d6 plus 6.
Ciao. Whoops.
E.
Oh my god.
13.
13?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So that is 65.
Did you roll? You're 7 total, right? 7 plus 6, that's 15.
Yes.
What the hell?
13.
What did you roll?
7 plus 6.
So you're both
15, right? That's 15. I just... It's 7s are the only one I can't do any math on. Do you
Yeah.
have that? Like a number... Like I never learned my 7s times table.
I-
So good on
my-
everything else. 7s
My
just...
favourite was my 7s times table,
Okay, well,
because everyone used to think that one was notoriously difficult, so I got really good at it and used to be able to skip doing all my other times tables because I knew the hard one. In reality, I knew none of them, as you saw earlier.
I'm actually falling apart. 15.
What are you trying to do? What is...
Any math.
What
15
was it?
times 5.
15 times 5.
50, 75. 75. I got it. Nobody,
We've
shut
done
up. That was my highest one. How is that?
No, you... Yeah.
While we're here, do you want to bring up a lovely picture that I've just zoomed us in on?
Zoomed. We're trying this out, so hopefully it works. But bam. Did it go?
Yes. Yes.
This is
but-
amazing.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Of course, we can't see it, but... Oh yeah, I can see it. That's cool.
So, continuing on, the last thing that you'll have to roll, well, second to last, is your education.
How many square boys?
2 square boys and add a 6.
I think you'll find their cubes. 5.
4.
9. 15 again.
14. I rolled 2 and
65.
a...
Yeah. So both of you are relatively well educated.
So Marianne was a... Wait, 14 times 5 is 70.
Yes.
You are
Status.
just a college graduate.
So yeah, because Marianne was 55, but she hadn't finished high school or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yep.
70 is like...
70 is college.
You went to
80 is
uni?
degree. Sorry,
What?
70 is like bachelor's,
Bachelor's degree.
80 is like a
Oh,
master's.
Okay.
So I am working on my master's currently.
So
when I hit
what's-
80, I'll have it.
What's yours?
75.
Okay, cool. So
Just enough higher to gloat.
I have my whatever I am. I have
So
my
are you
bachelor's.
70, did you say?
Yes.
That means
Zookeeper.
you've completed a bachelor's degree and you're probably done with that.
Cool.
And you would be working on your master's. So you're both relatively well educated.
Yeah.
Now, remember, education doesn't necessarily mean academic learning. In Call of Cthulhu, education actually represents specifically training in your job and job-related skills.
Right.
So if you pick something that had no academic ties, it would just mean maybe you've been doing it for a long time, maybe you were
Yeah.
apprenticed to someone who is very good at it. It can be pulled across and applied to academic settings very easily. So if you don't have a bachelor's degree, you have basically an equivalent of a bachelor's degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Limnology is a great is a great little thing. So next, I would like you to roll your luck. 3d6.
Oh, yeah.
You know. Do a. 12. 3d6.
3d6. 12. Okay, so you have a luck of 60.
No need.
13.
13. You have a luck of 65. Once again, just learnable range. All right. So, can I get a summary of each of your stats? And can I get a vague picture of what you maybe have in mind at this stage? Don't worry, you will have more time to think
I'll
through.
give you a hint.
Yep.
My picture's handsome.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it.
My highest two are internet education, so I'm a clever boy, or girl. And my dex and appearance are both 70. Then everything drops, and my lowest is power.
Okay.
So
Quick, smart.
pretty well educated,
Yeah.
dilettante adjacent in some form.
Yeah.
probably.
You're very.
I might not be rich though. I might be. What's
Well,
like?
the rich at this time, it's there are rich, there are
I don't wanna be
extremely
rich.
rich, but
I want to kick the shit out of the
there's
rich.
a lot of there's a lot of poor at this time, and there's a huge amount of sort of a push towards kind of left wing ideology, so you could very easily be part of one of those groups, all kinds of stuff like
Groovy.
that.
We're not doing any rerolls or anything, right?
We are not going to do any rerolls, no. Now, what about yourself?
So, my best two are con and size, and they are in the extreme. They're 90 and 85 respectively.
That's insane.
My next best two are power and intelligence
Right.
at 70 and 65. Dex and appearance are relatively average. Appearance is slightly under average, and strength is 20.
Right.
So-
Well, an injury might make that really
Yeah.
work. You could be a great war veteran. There are a lot of them around.
Yeah,
And
that
one of the
would
main
fit.
questions anyone will have who is German at this time or from Berlin was, what were you doing? Where were you during the
Yeah,
war?
what did you do in the war?
You could have a missing, like a missing limb or been
Yeah.
hamstrung or something. You could be like wheelchair bound or something. Like it's pretty reasonable.
Have a think about it.
Yeah.
While you two think, I want to state one other thing about building characters in Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is a game with a lot of cosmic horror. There's a lot of really dark stuff happening. So it is somewhat strange to say this, but in Cthulhu you do not play the cultist. You play investigators. You play people fighting against the forces of cosmic horror and the absolute other. So to a certain extent, remember that you are going to be goodies, essentially. You are going to be playing characters who are not necessarily leaning into anything particularly.
They can be complex.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
ultimately, no one wants to play a game where everyone's the baddie.
Exactly.
Unless
that's
you
what you
want
want to
to.
do. But, well, I mean, Call of Cthulhu is a game where you don't play the cultists, and that's something that is mentioned in the Keeper's Rulebook, essentially. And as you go through, there's lots of different ways of playing. Of course, you can play flawed characters and complex characters, but there is that as sort of a guiding idea. And another guiding idea is that your characters have to have a little bit of that quality that makes them push a little bit further. They are going to open that last door. They're going to go down into the basement. You know that moment in a horror movie when someone is just peeking around, you're going, no, turn away, run, don't do it. Your characters are the kind of characters who will do that. They have that inescapable element of curiosity that pushes them just a little bit further. But there's a lot of ways that we can figure out exactly what that is. Before we do that, we've got a couple of other statistics to reconcile, and these are things that are going to be built off your characteristics. So first of all, we're going to talk about your movement rates. Now, I want you all to look at your size.
Do we need to do age first?
Oh yeah, we should do age first. Thank you very much. Let's figure out age.
Oh, but I don't know my age until I get a character in mind.
You're totally right. Let's not do age and come back to that. All right. We're going to figure out our stats basically. We can come back and we can do age. Later...
We can do the drug. We don't need move rate for character creation a ton, do we?
Yeah, not really. So we can continue forward. What is important to know for character creation, because it can define what you're going to do in terms of your career or your or that kind of stuff, is going to be your build. So can you add your strength and size together?
Oh, that's like
175.
175.
105.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry.
What did you say?
Sorry,
yours
what were
was?
the
Strength
stats?
and size.
Strength and
Rather than
size.
common
Sorry. 105. Lord in heaven.
Twinsies!
Both of you are at 105?
Ah.
That's amazing. Would you be able to look behind my left shoulder on my wall, where I have written in red text
I have
all
it
of
here
the... You've got
otherwise.
it here? Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Big old 0.
Big old 0. So you both have a build of 0. Never mind, we go. You both have a build of 0, which means that neither of you add any damage bonus to your attacks, but neither do you subtract any.
Right.
So there is also a rule in Call of Cthulhu that if someone is 2 sizes bigger than you basically really aren't able to contest them. They will automatically win fighting brawl rolls against you. You two are average sized, so you have a chance at fighting
Average overall.
Average built.
average build, yeah. So you have a chance. You have a chance of fighting like your average tough, high build person. But once you get into the stage of, and Alexander wasn't this. Alexander was build 1. There are people who are build 2. The only people I think that you saw build 2 in the last campaign was the burnt, scarred face bodyguard.
The guy that was trying to shoot at us from the clock tower or
Exactly.
whatever?
The guy who was trying to shoot you from the top of the barn, who jumped off and who popped
Oh,
up.
that
So that person was
guy.
built 2. So for example, if that person had ever attacked Woolen in melee combat, Woolen would not have...
I was almost -2, I think, on Bill. I was
in which case,
-1.
if Alexander had ever attacked you, he would have just
Yeah.
picked you up and thrown you around.
Big build is like kingpin and stuff. Like you're
Exactly.
strong, you're big, you having none of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Exactly. So with that in mind, the next thing that you do is you're going to pick your careers. Now, your careers are a way that you are able to determine where you're going to put your skills and what kind of things you're going to put your skills into. There's a list of careers inside the Investigator's book that's very expansive. There's also a list in the Keeper's book, which provide enough to play with. Basically, what you can do is you look at all of your stats and you're going to pick one that is your highest. Now, this one can be anything but your intelligence and your luck.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've decided what that is, that will define what kind of job you're going to get. So if you have your primary attribute is going to be strength, then maybe you're going to get a manual labor job. If it's appearance, maybe you're going to be a diplomat or a actor or something like that. If you are going to have education, perhaps you are going to be a scholar, you are going to be a researcher. So have a look at your stats and think what the best would be for you.
So you don't have to pick your highest.
Also, you can pick anything.
Yeah.
This is just...
I apologise as well. Rachel, Constitution is not one of the ones you can pick, I believe.
fair.
I don't think there's any cons.
There's
There's also, so in the Berlin, there's a bunch of like suggested ones for being Berlin inspired.
Absolutely. Why don't you bring down the picture that we have up so I can go
It's
and
already
look at
down.
those? Oh, it's
I
already
killed it because we can't see chat when it's on.
Excellent.
Give it a little taste. I like... They've got taxi driver as one.
Yeah?
Should be kind of fun. Doesn't really fit my stats though. I just like the idea of being a Berlin taxi driver. I think that'd be fun.
what else is there?
Actor, artist, author, bartender, book dealer is kind of cool.
Book dealer.
Yeah,
That is cool.
that could be fun. I actually might look at that. Criminal, as in con man. We've already met one. Lucas,
Yes.
whatever.
I do crimes.
Fence, forger, straight punk and thug. Or cult leader, dilettante, taxi driver. Elected official, entertainer, foreign correspondent, journalist, musician, occultist, parapsychologist, photographer, police detective, prostitute, psychiatrist, union activist, and
Oh.
zealot.
Union activist. That's me.
I might actually do book dealer.
It's a
I'm kind of thinking it's like it's one of those ones where they have it's kind of like a Melbourne cafe vibe.
Yes.
It's like a nice little kitsch bookshop, and then behind it I'm not sure on the legality of certain things, but I think I'm running something out
Well,
of the back.
you were just diving into something that is really common in Berlin at this time. There are so many stores that basically functioned as fronts.
Yeah.
One of the most famous ones was ice cream stores that were also brothels, which is a really weird thing.
2 for 1. Cookies and cream.
Oh dear. But yeah, exactly. There's all
Bangers
kinds
and mash.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, there's all kinds of stores like that, and there is also in Berlin this huge culture of because it's very it's a European style city, so the streets are kind of older, which means it's very tight, it's kind of cramped, very, very beautiful, all the same. But there's a lot of buildings that kind of go in basements or attics and built around, so you could absolutely be a book dealer that has even a side business running out of your property that you don't really are associated with, or you could be totally associated with it.
I'll give you the loose. What I'm thinking. I like the bookshop. I also think the idea is you don't actually make a ton of money in a bookshop, especially when we're in a recession.
Yes,
that's one of the things that people probably lose pretty early. But it's educational, and people kind of need to go there. But I kind of want out the back because I'm not making any damn money. I'm in a union or something, and there's like what's the legality on unions and stuff, do you think?
So there
Would
are
that be something
all
where they'd want it hidden?
Yeah. Well, there are all kinds of political groups that are functioning throughout Berlin at this time, and the political system that is in place does not have a great control over what the overall consensus of the various political groups are. So you could, even if something is illegal, you could absolutely...
Or I'm just not paying taxes on the one that's in the back.
You could absolutely have something out the back that you you could have a communist meeting point there. You could have sort of it could be a meeting point for one of the disenfranchised groups. There's a lot of people would create safe havens for Eastern European people, stuff like that.
I like communist something because you can also be printing. A bookshop will have access to pamphlet printing and stuff, so you can be doing the thing where you're printing off like little copies of little red books and things and spreading them out discreetly around the city or something. I'll have
absolutely. Well, you could. There's a huge sort of far left community that you could be part of pretty easily, and that would fit quite well into some of the campaigns that we will be playing. So have a think about that.
Zookeeper then.
Whatever the most wild and difficult option is. What about you?
So, one of the ones that leapt out at me when you read them out was photographer.
Yep.
Because I've always loved the story of there was that famous war photographer, it's Robert something. I don't know his last name, even though he's apparently very famous. He was the 2007 movie Sunshine. The main character is named after that guy. Okay. Anyway,
which war was he photographing? One of them.
There was only 2 to pick from.
But the world ones,
yeah,
not like Vietnam War or something. Yeah, I'm with you.
So I like the idea of being like a war photographer that was injured, and kind of a similar thing I was thinking was like the photography store. But no one really needs photographers.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want us
Well,
to
we can be.
do
you want us to have a connection?
There is a great little point that could connect you in Berlin's history, and that is the proliferation of newspapers. Everyone is rushing to this country to be newspaper publishers because Berlin is absolutely the haven of that kind of thing. There are 60 daily newspapers spread throughout the city with all kinds of different leanings and styles and emphasis. So there is this huge community of journalists. And of course, journalist is a fantastic way into any kind of mythos investigation. You could be looking for a scoop.
Yeah.
You could just be pulled in because you're kind of the people that people go to when they have these problems. So if you want to be linked and you could have access to printing elements as a dealer, you could be running a secret magazine.
Yeah, I was thinking a communist scene or something.
Like a red flag, but.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Hell yeah.
It's super down for this.
Not only is it sort of referenced and talked about in the source book, these kind of things come up in the campaigns that we will be playing.
Neat.
So it would be an excellent link for the both of you to have.
And we also had some suggestions in terms of why my strength is so low.
Fantastic.
So Captain Firebeard suggested like permanent arm damage.
Yep. Yeah.
Or I'm thinking maybe some kind of permanent Because I guess if my strength is low, it doesn't necessarily mean my speed is low.
No.
No.
Yeah,
Because
that
I
makes
was
sense.
thinking
That makes
like
sense. Oh,
maybe I
yeah.
have a limp, but then I would have to also be slow.
It could
Yeah.
even be like, I mean, you've got such high con. You could have fought off something that normally kills people, like influenza,
Yeah,
pneumonia,
so
or
then
polio, or something.
Nightcat then suggested an illness that I haven't recovered from, such as Spanish flu or trench fever.
Trench fever sounds
Jack
gross.
Stroll suggested shrapnel on the leg.
Shrapnel's cool.
Um,
You could have a little Tony Stark thing going where you have shrapnel in you that you haven't pulled out yet, and then we build the mech and so on
Exactly.
and
Well,
so
that
forth.
you'll need
After
it
we
to
get our
fight the film.
magazine.
I mean, those are all fantastic. Other things that were, if you're looking at the Great War for inspiration, gas was a huge thing, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So you could have some residual damage from that. Another big thing was, of course, shell shock, and a lot of people found themselves basically with psychosomatic illnesses. So you might have
Ooh.
been like so shell
Physically.
shocked that you can't.
Like physically you're okay, but psychologically you can't.
It's
You're
a little bit of
Yeah.
a
Tremors or
complicated
something.
term because it sounds like it's saying it's not real. It's not saying
No.
that.
Yeah.
It's totally real, but there is not a physiological basis for the injury.
Right.
Yeah. It is something that comes from
Yeah.
mental health.
And the big thing is because you have high con but low strength. So yeah, stuff like gas probably doesn't suit because that'll like stroke out your lungs and stuff. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So basically, it's up to you.
Thinking it has to be something that makes me. I mean, to boil it down to its finer parts, something that makes me bad at punching.
There are if
Shrapnel
you
or
wanted to
something
lean
like
into the shell shock avenue, there are reports of people from the Great War who would sort of clench up in fear and then never be able to unclench a limb.
Oh,
so
geez.
you
Ooh,
could,
like
you,
overstressed or
you,
something.
you've got this tense arm that you basically can't.
That also throw off your
Yeah.
photographer. And,
I don't want to be a photographer.
Well, you
Well,
could
I
be
don't
something
have to.
where you can get movement back if you massage it for a bit, but you're never going to be swinging punches. Alternatively, yeah, you could you could just go straight missing arm. You could, I mean, that's also everything coming from the Great War. You could take another source of inspiration if you would like.
I think I like the psychosomatic. I kind of like the whole like I have the shakes and it
Yeah.
makes holding the
Isn't
camera.
your power really high as well?
70.
So that's cool because but that just shows like it can affect anyone, but it's something that you like you're mentally you've taken on a lot and you've been able to deal with, but there's still baggage that you carry with you to this day.
Absolutely, and there's all kinds of reports of this kind of thing happening, and shell shock was really just not understood at all when the First World War really begun, and it was it's a massive thing. People used to think that they called it shell shock because their assumption was that the impact of shells was shaking people's brains inside their head, which may have been true to an extent, but they basically didn't understand or didn't have a conception of the idea that basically there was just this
PTSD.
of PTSD.
Yeah.
What was did you read the book in high school, the one with like all the soldiers? I don't know. This
Triage?
story's going
Are you
nowhere.
thinking
I think.
triage?
I don't think it is triage. It's the one where they go to like the hospital and there's all the soldiers walking around. Read it in English.
What? All
I don't.
quiet on the
I
Western
don't.
Front, or
Hey.
All
Sorry?
Quiet on the Western Front.
I
Could
don't
be
know where I
Hemingway
was
book.
going with this, to be
Fair
honest,
Arms.
because I can't remember.
Well, Triage is a fantastic book
Triage
about
I
the
remember.
Spanish Civil
That
War.
one's excellent, but it was
Yes,
something different.
which stars a war correspondent and a war photographer who,
High school lit teacher's gonna be pissed. Farewell to Arms, maybe?
Farewell to Arms is one of my
It's gonna
favourite books,
irritate me.
and I can't remember the details.
Yeah, I don't even know what I've forgotten.
Farewell to Arms has one of the best last lines in all of literature, in which basically you have the entire story, hundreds and hundreds of pages long, and then everything goes wrong in the last page. They completely change everything, and the final line is like, and spoiler alert, if you haven't read Farewell to Arms, it's an old book, but
Suck it.
yeah, it's like
Damn it.
and his wife that he's been with the whole book dies, and his kid dies, and he left the hospital and he walked home in the rain.
Oh
And that's
no.
it. And it's typically Hemingway, very brief. I love it. Anyway, so we're gonna have to figure out some professions.
That's kind of like
Book dealer /
Yes.
activist,
Now,
printer. You run a printing press essentially, like
I don't know. I think I like the idea that I'm not. I mean, that's why I like the high appearance. I think I'm kind of the face of it, right? So I run this bookshop. I'm charismatic enough, and I enjoy literature and stuff enough, even though I can't remember the name of this flippin' book, that I can take people in and deal with them, and then I ferry those that are in the know backwards. I am associated with it. I do not run it.
Okay.
I think I am a little naive on some of the ideologies because I personally am also. So it'll be a way that I can sort of half know them. And
That sounds really, really good. So I'm going to have some questions for you very briefly. You know, where you live, what do you do, and you're going to have to figure out things like names.
We need to... I would be remiss if I didn't suggest this. It would sit like a lump of stone in my heart for the rest of the campaign. We both play... like 15-year-old reporters from a school, and we're getting scoops, and we power around Berlin. I like books, and I write them, and you take the photos. We're like the Hardy Kids.
The school reporters. I think that is a fantastic idea. That would be immediately inappropriate. So
okay, all right, okay, good. One day.
We're gonna wonder about all the things that could have been.
I'm just gonna every situation we get in now. I'm gonna have in the back of my head we could have been 14-year-olds and way over our head.
Just everything is. Oh dear God.
Okay.
I'm just weirdly imagining this with like anime opening credit music, like really upbeat, like
bunch of shots of leaves going past,
like
us chasing trains.
When in reality we've got the pouring rain or the ice streets of Berlin, and walking past veterans as people in scary
drugged out of their
clothing
minds,
walking past glaring at you. But it's all fun and games. So that sounds pretty good to me. What you're going to do now is you're going to take your So I think that what are you arguing is going to be your primary stat there? Education or appearance?
I'll look it up, I guess. I'm happy with either. It'll be education or appearance.
It sounds like education to me.
I think it's education. I think I'm really into literature and books.
In which case, what you're going to do is you're going to take your education. You're going to times it by 4.
Okay.
You would usually times it by 2 and add it to the other stats. So if you pick strength, 2 times strength plus 2 times education.
Cool.
And whatever number of points you get, say 250, you're going to spread that around skills that are complementary to your career. So they have to be things that you would use. So as a printer, book dealer, antiquarian sort of, you would not be using guns, for example, unless you could argue that you're a criminal.
I'll take the librarian one and just reskin it,
so
if that works.
The standard careers that come in the book have a set of 6 or 7 skills that come automatically, and they help you do that. So you will go through that, and I want you to start adding your points while I talk to Rachel about what she's going to pick. So war photographer,
I am thinking post-war photographer. I'm thinking some kind of, and we'll just call it PTSD because we know what that means, even if they don't refer it to that.
Yep.
Some kind of like shakes or like tenseness in the arms. But I was thinking it would be, just because I'm thinking of the photographer profession, it would be interesting to have it be something like, but photography is the one thing that helps them focus.
Okay,
and
that's great.
Soothes it a little bit.
That's really cool. Were you a photographer in the war? Was that what you were doing in the war?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
So you were a correspondent working with the newspapers, and you would have been to the front. You would have been taking pictures like that.
Yeah.
And you've come back, and you've still sort of got this terrible kind of memory of what happened there. But you probably have the, like when you were on the front, you just did your job. Going back into photography mode probably helps you deal with that and rationalize things.
Yeah. I think the whole it's separating yourself from what's in the frame. And it's like you cope with it by freezing that moment in time and compartmentalizing it away from yourself.
That's cool.
And then you come home and you're like, oh God, it was real.
It was all terrible. Yeah. So that sounds fantastic. That sounds great to me. So power might be what you're using as an artist.
Power.
So 2 times power and 2 times education is what you're going to do, and you're going to do a similar thing. Now, there is not a default photography skill on the character sheet, which means it is going to be arts and craft, and you can write down arts and craft photography, and that will be. Now, when you're actually adding points to your skills, for those of you following along at home, your skills around 40 to 60, once again, is the professional range. So don't feel like if you are, say, a mechanic, you have to have 90 in mechanical repair. That means you're one of the best in the world. You are absolutely fantastic at it. And indeed, if you pick to have 90 in mechanical repair, why aren't you working on the greatest cars and have your own company? You're an absolute genius at it. So having around 50 is perfectly reasonable as a professional. That said, if you were someone who really uses photography as a form of therapy, they might be particularly very gifted at it. So have a think, have a look at your skills, begin to spread them out, and I will read another quote while these two fine people begin to spread out their skills. And this is actually from the scenario rather, at the beginning of the campaign that we're going to be playing. The quote goes like this: "The horrors of war and the worst horrors of Bolshevism have taught us that nothing is too ghoulish to be true." And that was said by Gerald Bliss in The Door of the Unreal. Now, we might be talking about Bolshevism, especially if we have a communist leaflet distributor amongst our midst. So, once the two of you have begun to lay out all of your statistics, you're going to have to start to think about things like your age and your names and details like that. You're also going to have a look at your credit rating. Don't forget that skill. That will determine how much money you have, and it has to come from your education points. So have a think. Are you part of one of the rich? Are you part of the bourgeois? Are you going to be...
Oh, you have to spend money. You have to spend points to bump up your credit rating?
Absolutely. And if you have no credit rating, then you are totally penniless, which would put you in quite a bit of good company at this time because there are a lot of people who are in exactly the same position.
So remind me, because Marianne was 60 and I had so much money that it became a running joke.
Yes.
So...
you kind of had so much money because... both because the others didn't, more to the point, and because your family had a lot of money, and the 60 represented what you were able to pull from your family.
Yeah.
So your family would have been more like an 80, but you had a 60 since you were not sort of fully you were in control of that estate.
So if I understand, so the average person has
between
like a 20
well,
or less.
The average person hits 20 to 40, 20 to 20.
Right.
Something like that. I believe that it crosses over to rich when you hit 50, I believe.
Okay. I am not thinking that I am particularly... I want to say that I am loosely comfortable in the sense that you can be in a recession post-war. So I'm going to quietly allocate 20 right now. Is that kind of like a...
That sounds totally reasonable to me.
Yeah,
You've got some stuff together. You're
I put 15, but if I own a store, it should probably be higher.
Probably more than that, yeah.
I would agree.
I will go the upper end of my range, which is 35.
So how much have I spent so far? So I got 60, 80, another 80, so that's 160, 180. So I have 100 left. What have I put down? Okay.
Hey, what would be... So I've got German as my main language.
Absolutely.
What would
your
be
German will be equal to your education score, remember, because your own language begins at equal to your education.
Yeah. What would be a second language that would be around?
Okay, well, I can absolutely answer that. So, as I said, Germany was very scattered, and there were a lot of different communities. In fact, there's actually a lot of dialects of German. Even to this day, people from different regions of Germany sound very different to each other. But used in this time period, so in 1921, one of the most common languages spoken was French, particularly among the aristocracy, who still, at the time...
Aristocracy?
Yes, well, what remained the aristocracy at the time. Basically, France for a long time was the lingua franca of Europe, and there's still remnants of that today. Technically, the diplomatic language is French.
Actually, that does kind of work, because also quite a lot of books would probably be written in French, wouldn't they? So...
You're totally right. But particularly in this period, rapidly increasing is the other number of English speakers.
That's right.
And English is becoming one of the most common languages that people speak. Other ones that you could potentially pick, Russian would be pretty common, Italian, Swedish. Less common would be things like Turkish or Yiddish, but both of them still had...
Spanish as well is probably in there as well. I think I'll do English. It makes sense.
There
especially
is,
given...
all throughout Europe at the time, there is also this basically craze about American culture, and that leads into why a lot of people are learning English.
If I've been to the front...
Yes.
in the First World War, I'm thinking that I would have picked up something of some other language.
Yes.
So would that be French?
Depends if you're on the eastern or the western front. If you're on the western front, you absolutely could have picked up some French and some English. If you're on the eastern front, you probably would have picked up Russian, or you could have potentially picked up, Serbian or one of the Eastern European languages. But yeah, western front, you'll easily pick up French.
I think I might just chuck a bit into French. Maybe like a...
Marianne spoke a little bit of French too.
I don't, but she did. So with languages again, 40 to 60 is like a conversational.
40 to 60 is well, I mean that's fantastic.
That's
40,
you
that you're fluent. You're absolutely fluent.
Right, okay.
30 is kind of you can struggle past and have a conversation with.
Yeah,
people.
even like 15's like you can visit
Yeah.
the country.
Exactly.
Because I'm thinking like what you would pick up at the front would be very like transactional, basic.
Yeah,
like,
probably like 15.
15,
Okay.
15 around that.
So hang on, we only include what we bump it up by. So if it starts at, say, 20 and I make it 35, I've only spent 15.
Exactly.
I always forget that. So I've spent 55, I've spent 15.
Now, one thing to note is that when you level up a certain language to 50, associated languages you immediately gain 10 in.
Oh yeah, it's Germanic.
Now, Germanic has root English. It is considered... English is root Germanic. But it is, according to the rules of Call of Cthulhu, French and German are not considered to be related languages. So if you
I'm
are
taking
going
English
into...
though, so that-
if you're going to English, so you should start at 10 for English.
Don't mind if I
Have
do.
you thrown anything into anthropology?
Nope.
Not to metagame, but...
Nope.
Okay.
But guess who has accounting?
It's just that...
Oh, useful stuff.
I'm just thinking if I have a bachelor's degree...
May as well be in something, right?
Yeah, so I went to uni and I went and studied anthropology. Isn't that what
Yeah,
Mary
I
Ann
guess
was? Yes.
I think
Guess I
she
studied literature. Do I need a skill for that?
Well, arts and craft literature would be
I've
entirely
taken arts and
valid.
craft printing because I think I can help. Like
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
do like I think that's. Oh, I guess
That should be. That
would
should be
literature
fine.
cover that?
I would allow you to make education checks for literature,
Okay, cool.
probably.
Well,
So
that
that's I bet otherwise history.
Google famous German books from the time.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to jump out and tell you many of them. Now, so the ones that are being created at the time are particularly sort of linked into the upheaval that is going
Yeah.
on. So I am not particularly aware of some of those.
225. I'm getting there slowly.
Oh, there's so many. What year is it? 21.
1921.
All these books were written after. Ooh, except this one. There's something called Buddenbrooks.
240. I've got 40 left. I was gonna ask.
Now remember, you will get some other skill points to spend on
Yeah.
extra stuff, so don't
So
panic too much.
Just remind me the difference between psychology and psychoanalysis.
Psychology is being able to read people. You're going to roll psychology to determine if someone is lying. You're going to roll psychology to determine if an area has like a vibe that violence is about to erupt.
Yeah.
Psychoanalysis is specifically like alienism. It is the treating
Right. Okay.
of at what at the time were called diseases of the mind.
So I'm at 260. I've got 20 left. I'm just trying to think of what else would be good to throw into it. Disguise would be hilarious.
That's an excellent architecture at the time. Would you like to bring up another picture when you get a second?
We'll do it now. You want it?
Yeah.
Oh, we can do in custom ones, can't we?
You can, so you can pick.
Should be
You could write in some custom skills. There's also some expanded skills. The sciences, for example, you might want to pick up. One of the something that you might have picked up in the front
Oh,
could have
I'm
been
gonna
explosives.
Totally gonna be an amateur chemist.
Well,
I'm a photographer.
if you're a photographer,
Fuck
you've
it.
got a
Oh,
bunch
yeah,
of
you
weird
have a-
chemicals
Yeah,
lying
I'm a
around.
chemist. All right. So I have.
dark room.
have
Well,
20, okay.
there's a huge drug culture in Berlin at the time.
Oh shit! Is there?
And the secret.
Let me take some points out of library use.
Friggin' nerd.
You can't have a skill called drug taking. No,
Narcotics.
There is actually a whole section in the Secrets of Berlin book that talks about sort of the proliferation of drug use in Berlin, but also that adds a bunch of rules for what drugs do to investigators. There in Pulp Cthulhu, there is a whole section on what alcohol does, and basically how if you knock back a bunch of shots before you go to run in to fight an elder god, you get immune to some
You might
sanity
maybe
loss.
survive.
You well, not survive, but you won't go berserk right away. And there's similar things. The Berlin book not only brings that element of Pulp Cthulhu into one of the main source books for the not pulp enhanced game. But it also brings in a bunch of other stuff, like what the effects of investigators that are, for example, high on cocaine, how they'll behave,
Oh my gosh.
things like that. So it's particularly interesting, and amateur chemists might be all about that. I think we've had enough looking at this building. If you want to, goodbye building.
5. Sorry, I'm almost done. 20.
So, are you done attributing your statistics?
Yep.
All right. So the next step is going to be to, and this is we're pretty much done now. You've got to add a couple of extra points, and then we work out the final details of
The
your
backstory
character.
stuff.
Yes, that's where it gets fun, though. That's where it's
Okay.
really cool.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom.
I
Please do.
have finished my skills. So I threw in chemistry as a science skill. I figured because you have to develop things.
Oh yeah.
So he or she would have to have some basic understanding.
100%. No, chemistry is absolutely fantastic. I was going to suggest explosives, which is a skill that you can get, but I think the chemistry is. I think the chemistry is.
I don't know. I just feel like with the PTSD stuff, maybe explosives is not.
Not absolutely
Their
the best.
jam.
No, I think that's probably a good take. So I'll tell you what. Why don't, since we've had one person walk off to the bathroom now, why don't we take a quick break now? We will do some more of the number crunching that you've already got a sense for, and then when we come back, we will dive straight into creating character backstory in detail, and then we will jump into the first element of the campaign, which kicks off with an explosive scene.
Oh boy.
See you soon.
We're live.
Wow! We're live! We're back! Thank you for joining us. We're here. We're getting back into our last bit of character creation before we dive into Berlin, the wicked city, and the explosive start that awaits. That is my phone going off and telling me all the things I've just heard. We'll ignore that. It never happened. Don't tell anyone. Now, so what we're going to do is we are going to jump through and we're going to finish off going through these characters. What both players have done during the break is that they have taken to adding their freebie points. And freebie points are basically worked out by taking your intelligence score, doubling it, and adding those to extra things. And those can be things like your hobbies. So if you decide that your quiet bookstore owner that you have created is really, really handy with a samurai sword, then you can suddenly do that. And if you decide that your injured war correspondent is actually secretly an amateur chemist, which is exactly what you have done, you can add some of those points there. So those are all...
Miss, I'm
very
done.
valid. You're done? That is
I'm
fantastic.
also done.
You are both done.
Yes.
So we can now move forward to the bit where we roll up all of the extra details of your characters. Now, once again, this is going to be really setting dependent, so these things are going to lean into elements that work with the story of Berlin, and we are going to be using the rules in the Keeper's Rulebook to roll up a bunch of extra stuff. So, once we get into here, we're going to have to start picking some details that are going to stick. You're going to pick your characters' names, you're going to pick what they look like, you're going to pick all kinds of details like that. First thing we're going to do, I want you both to pick up a D10. We're going to roll an ideology or belief. Chat, if you have any suggestions, once again, please feel free to suggest them.
Yes,
We'd love
absolutely.
to hear. As your ideas can be very detailed, they can be very small, whatever you would like. Ideology and belief. Both of you roll a D10 and give me the number that you get. Once again, we are sticking with these. So we are going to do our best to try and stay with them.
Okay. I don't know what they are. 9.
A 9? 9. You have rolled money is power.
Ooh.
I'm going to get all I can.
No, I actually like that.
That's why
Really?
I have none.
That's why I run a
Rising.
bookstore.
Well, you're currently renting it out to what seem to be communist booksellers, so...
I like it because money is power. I think is really good actually
Money.
because I think it's like because money is power, but that's a bad thing. I recognize it's power, and those assholes need less.
So it's like, I believe in communism, but right now, I need money.
I need some of them marks. Money is power. I think money is power, but that and then it's kind of it's the root of all, etc. right?
Yeah.
Like you think you
I'm
can do
telling
both?
you though, you probably don't want marks specifically. You'd be looking for pounds at this
That's
stage.
true. No, I'm gonna destroy them. I'm gonna burn them all.
Pounds and dollars
Money is
is
power.
very big on the black
All
market.
evil.
What did you roll?
I rolled an 8.
An 8. Politics. Are you a conservative, a socialist, a liberal? So
That's what I wanted.
This works really
Oh
well.
my lord, what is this?
You have a political ideology of some sort.
Oh, I can pick?
You can pick absolutely.
But that's
whatever.
what's important.
Bash the fash. Can I be a...
Absolutely. Well, you could be a hardcore. There's Berlin at
What was
this
that?
time is just awash with all kinds of very radical ideologies that are brewing, and obviously, as we mentioned, we are playing in Berlin pre-World War II, so there are some ideologies that are going to be rising in power very, very soon.
That
Now,
means there's gonna be more fash to bash.
yeah, exactly.
I predicted about 20 years. Just
Now,
too much.
once again, we did say at the start of the session that there is obviously some heavy stuff playing in Berlin here. Call of Cthulhu, you do not play the cultist. And that might be a mythos cult, or it might be cults of very radical, dangerous ideologies. We are not going to play as people who are leaning into those things. So you can absolutely play as someone who is very, very anti the terrible things that are going to be happening in the future. But yeah, there we go. That's Cthulhu for you.
So I'm thinking, I've been to the war. I could see myself being a bit of a... Because I'm trying to think of how this all fits in. I can see myself being a bit anti-war. You've seen the horrors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've seen it up close. You've been there. Totally.
Yeah. So I guess it would. I'm just trying to think. Does that fit with like a radical leftist thing, or am I? Because I know
I mean,
Well, you'd probably be against, like, you would have been conscripted most likely, so you'd be against conscription and stuff.
there were radical leftist ideologies at the time that were pro-violence. There were radical leftist ideologies at the time that were anti-violence.
Your political ideology doesn't mean you need to be like all of socialism. You could just be, I believe very strongly that government has no right to send people to war.
You could have just a couple of key issues that are really important to your character.
Yeah,
your speaking points.
So I think they would be definitely very anti-war.
Right.
And anti-violence in general.
Good things. No one's going to argue.
I mean,
What were your points in guns?
I put a little bit in, I just thought, like,
well,
having
those
been
can be things
there.
that
You can be
learned in the
anti-violence.
past. Absolutely.
If something runs at you, you're going to do,
I have
that's
a little
interesting.
bit in handgun because I figure I would have.
You've gone through training.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think I would just generally like to be a leftist.
Sure.
That's a fantasy that I've had for a long time.
Actually, that's pretty funny though as well. If you go really anti-violence, because I've given myself a hefty chunk of fighting brawl, and we might have similar ideologies but different methods of going about them, which could be kind of fun to play on.
All right. So here's something really interesting about Berlin as well. Berlin at this time really doesn't have guns. It's a strictly controlled industry, and because of the disarmament programs that were put in place after World War One, just getting a gun into Berlin, even as a foreigner, is incredibly difficult. There is, as a result, a huge amount of street fighting that is taking place, and gangs are attacking each other and brawling it out. It's very, very punk. So you could absolutely be part of some of that kind of stuff.
In terms of people who would have guns, are we talking like the ultra rich, police, or is it just like it's really no one?
Basically, I mean, rule of thumb,
It'd be illegal if you
no one. It's people who have very close relationships with the law and are able to wade through the bureaucracy. As it is written in the Berlin the Wicked City book, you need a license to have a hunting shotgun for getting birds.
Wow.
It is incredibly strictly controlled.
Right.
And indeed, there are a couple of lines at this time in this city. If you pull out a gun or even a knife, people will scatter. Weapons aren't really.
So people. Okay.
Weapons aren't really popping around at this point.
So just to understand, does that mean that agitators from both sides might be using that particular characteristic?
People were punching each other. At this point, there were mobs of people trying to go and start fights with each other.
Right.
And they were punching each other.
So
they were beating each other up. The exact line is, rarely is a weapon used that is more than a fist or a boot heel.
Okay, cool. That really helps me with strength 20.
Exactly.
For context, so following the Treaty of Versailles, there was blah 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 blah. There was an excess of weapons. You need to surrender them to the government. So then the German government passed a law basically saying you need to give us all your guns, surrender your firearms and ammunition, or you will go to jail for 5 years and be fined a shitload. It's also interesting because they don't only ban civilian use of firearms, but also instruction on their use, shooting exercises so any clubs wouldn't be able to do it. It's interesting the training one, because I think that's a really cool, because the people that get guns or whatever, you have different parties that get them and stuff, and then just, there's a menace to themselves as much as anyone else.
Exactly. So there is a really there is a lack of that kind of armed element of
despite their intentions, these laws were failed to be effective.
Yeah, well, there is also that. But especially in 1921, in the immediate post-war aftermath, they are at their most effective.
Can I grab your phone? Sorry, chat's not showing up on screen. I just noticed. Yeah. It's not a huge deal.
That's all right. We are. Otherwise, we're going to.
Please hold. In the meantime, we're going to be jumping on to the next role, which is significant people. So,
it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Can you both grab a D10?
I have mine.
All right, roll your D10. This is going to be significant people, and then right afterwards, you're going to roll your relationship to these people. So roll your D10.
I rolled a 3.
3, a sibling. You have rolled. So this could be a brother, a half brother, a stepsister, whatever you would like. Please roll a second D10 though. because your relationship with this sibling
I rolled a 0 or a 10, whatever you want to. Half full,
Feels
half
is that
empty.
they have crossed you and you seek revenge.
Oh fuck!
What do you blame them for? It could be the death of a loved one, your financial ruin, a marital breakup. Could be something to do with your past on the front. Anything like that. Over to this side.
6
6 for the first one.
and then a 2.
Alright, a 6 is a person who taught you your highest occupational skill. So this is someone who taught
My lit teacher.
Yeah, your literature teacher has come. It's exactly what we feared. And your relationship to them, you said a 2 is what you wrote, got?
Close.
Alright. And your relationship to the teacher of your highest skill is they taught you something. Which makes sense. So you're going to re-roll that. Get that dice and re-roll it.
For what's worth, highest skill. Library use. 0, so 10.
Re-roll it because that's they have crossed you once again.
Or 7.
You idolize them.
Okay,
So
that's
you
cool.
have an idol who is basically someone who taught you something. So you possibly learnt at the feet of one of the grandmasters, anything like that. You
I
can
think
figure out.
a
the
grandmaster. I
details.
like the idea of someone. Yeah, so it's taught library use. So probably, basically, I think it would just be my professor. I think it's that one where you have the professor and you learn, some of my degree or whatever. But also, they taught me life skills.
Yes.
They were the guy that sat on the chair backwards and they said, "Hey class, today let's just chat."
Let's wrap. It's all good.
So it's my professor.
Little spoiler for what's ahead, chat, and everyone who's watching. With a severe dose of be careful when you Google this, if you'd all like a little bit of a hint of what's to come, why don't you Google Carl Grossman?
Do you want me to go to the screen or you got
No,
something?
I don't. This can be
Are
someone.
we allowed to look it up or just
No,
chat?
you are not allowed to look it up.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm gonna roll.
Someone who will have a very significant effect on the campaign that is coming up.
I'm gonna roll a name for my professor from the German names in the book.
Okay, fantastic.
Professor 6. How do you read this? What the hell? 6. Oh, there's the second one. 6 surnames. 5, 6. Oswald.
Oswald. Perfect.
That's lovely.
All right, wonderful. So,
Isn't Oswald the Penguin?
from what?
Batman? Isn't it Oswald?
Oh my god.
Oswald?
What?
It's
I
Danny
don't know.
DeVito as my.
Oh my god, what is the penguin's name? I am not sure what the penguin's real name is, and it's killing me.
It's Oswald. Yeah, it's Oswald Cobblepot.
That's it, Oswald Cobblepot. Fantastic.
In 1920s Berlin. And I idolize them.
Oh my
and
god.
he's super rich.
Yeah.
Isn't he really money?
And you're basically a
It makes
gangster. It
sense.
makes perfect sense.
It's all coming
Next,
together.
we're going to do. We've got about 3 things left to roll. Then we can jump into things. Meaningful locations. Grab your d10s.
7.
The 7 roll on meaningful locations. You have the grave of a significant person, possibly
Who
something
crossed
to
you.
do with And what about yourself?
Dose.
Dose. Your hometown. Are you from Berlin? Something to consider.
Is there something about small nearby towns or something?
Um,
No,
this-
actually, no. I want to be from Berlin.
Okay.
I think
You're local.
I like that. I also care about it. I care about what's happening to
Yeah.
it. I want to see it grow. I want to see it become better.
You might consider as well, if you'd like, Rachel. You don't necessarily need to be from Berlin. In fact, something really interesting might have been if you fought on the other side of the Western Front and have now gone. And I mean, that could be a really interesting character note. But you can also both be Berlin locals. Jump in. Next,
Okay.
treasured possessions. Both of you grab your d10s. This is one of my favorites.
1.
1, an item connected with your highest skill. So this could be an expensive suit, a false IDs, brass knuckles, a lockpick set, a camera. If
I
you-
was thinking a camera.
yeah, you
It
got
does make more
works
sense.
perfectly well. But this means you really treasure that possession. So you were going.
Yes.
This is super important to you.
Yes.
I got a 1, so I rerolled for an 8.
Okay, a sporting item: cricket bat, baseball, a fishing rod.
And baseball bat's great for cracking skulls. Isn't
I
it?
mean, it's fantastic.
Is cricket... Germany doesn't give a shit about cricket, do they?
I don't think so.
I really don't.
Although, if anyone is...
Wants to correct me.
If anyone,
Why would
if
they
anyone
don't give a shit about
knows
baseball
about the German
either?
appreciation of cricket,
What was the name that people should be Googling? Was it something
Carl Grossman.
Was that with a K?
That is CARL, and then
Carl.
GRO, and a lovely Germanic symbol, the name of which I do not know in English,
Umlaut.
unfortunately.
An O with a little dots?
No, it is not that. It looks like a large B. I'm so sorry. Once again, I'm
Oh,
gonna
the one
bullshit.
that's pronounced sh or something. It's
Grossman. Yes.
Yeah,
oh, I don't know how to. Oh, there it is.
It's like a squiggly thing.
Is it? Is it that? Is that what I would type?
Yeah, it'll be that one. Yeah, I think that's right.
Just
So the popular sports in Germany, and I think this is more recent, but it's football,
Yes.
so soccer, golf, ice hockey, basketball, Formula One.
Well, you could have a golf club,
Golf
or
club is
you could
cool.
have
Or I could have a Formula
large
One
ice
car.
hockey boot connected to the end of a stick.
I don't need to beat the shit out of people with it. I just do.
Okay.
I could go cleats. I
Yeah.
go stomping around in my cleats. That seems weird though.
SZ.
I don't actually. Oh, sorry. What was the Could you reread the thing?
All right, certainly. A sporting item: cricket bat, a signed baseball, a fishing rod. Could be a car. Could be a gun that you've kept if you were a hobby shooter.
I think it will be.
Boxing gloves.
I think it will be. I think it generally will be soccer cleats.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I just have them. I
All
don't
right.
like them.
Maybe you.
Maybe
you
they were
almost-
given. I think
yeah.
there might have been like our family was poor, and not every kid gets to play recreational sport. So my folks chipped in for a set of cleats. They're too small for me now,
Yeah.
but I still have them.
Fantastic. And the last thing to roll is traits. So a D10 from both of you.
I rolled a 9.
That's 9.
A 9. It's definitely not a 6.
The thing you have rolled is a good reputation.
I have a good reputation.
So this could be you're the best after dinner speaker in the country. You're the most pious of men. You're fearless in the face of danger. Maybe you distinguished yourself on the battlefield.
I never miss a deadline.
Oh yeah,
We need that
work.
photo by
You
Tuesday.
do it right.
Sir.
Exactly.
Get
what
it on your desk by Monday afternoon.
Wonderful. And what about you? What did you get?
You scrape them in. You're not doing them early. I rolled a 2.
With a 2, you have rolled good with animals.
I'm a Disney princess.
Exactly. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's truly wonderful.
Oh, you're good with animals. Your birds floating around your derelict books.
It's not derelict. It's nice.
I'm just picturing.
But there are a lot of rats and stray cats.
Yeah.
I love.
You can absolutely
I think
have like
I
stray
think it's
cats
like
in the alley behind the shop.
I go out each night and I like put down milk and what
Is it milk
isn't
bad
it
for
super,
cats?
whatever they haven't. I don't think we've learned that yet in
Yeah.
1920s, so it's still good for them. Put out milk and stuff, and they all gather around, and then eventually they have lactose intolerance, so they do die later. But it is off screen.
Wow, that's horrible.
As long as it's also
Loves animals. What was it? Good with animals?
yeah, good with animals.
Please give us something else.
So that is your characters. The last things that you need to work out are their age and their names.
Okay, so but really quickly, are you thinking of playing man or a woman? Because I don't really
It was
mind.
woman in my head, I think, but I was gonna roll it because we've rolled everything. So I was just gonna, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then just flip a coin. I think.
Decide as you see fit.
I'm happy doing that. What do you say? You would D6?
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, woman, 4, 5, 6.
All right.
Man.
Fuck it. We'll make Jackson do this as well.
I'm a bloke.
I'm a chick. That worked out.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so that was going to be my question because I am all about that diversity in gaming.
Absolutely.
But were women sent to the front even as photographers?
Oh yeah.
Historically.
Okay.
And I don't mind bending the rules a little bit, but I was
So-
thinking about it.
Listen.
Yeah, that's a pretty.
I am by no means an expert on World War One, so my answer is I don't know.
As a photographer,
I
maybe.
basically look. Let's play it. If you think it's cool, let's do it. You can have been on the front, and there definitely were.
Oh my god, I'd be a big. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. If you want to play it, let's do it.
I mean, you rolled.
You
I
could
rolled.
have changed it. I don't know. It's up to you. You probably wouldn't have been. encouraged to be there.
I was thinking
Like,
dude.
are the size of a truck.
Yeah. Well, that's not a big deal. Because size doesn't necessarily mean bulk. You can also just be really tall.
You can be
right?
slender, yeah.
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 Do you want to swap?
I don't really mind. Because you did say you were thinking chick, and
In my head, I was.
I think it'd be funny. I think it'd be fun as well.
I'll swap. Yep.
Yay!
That's alright.
We did it.
I'm gonna add an FE. Now I'm female.
Oh, there. Oh boy. So age. I'm thinking I've got to be at least. Let me think. If I was, I gotta be like at least mid to late 20s.
Yeah,
Can't
you'd
be
probably
too
be.
old.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
This
gonna
is
put
our
myself
last chance.
Smack bang. I'm 27.
14-year-old.
14.
I've
Last
I've written
chance.
27.
As soon as we get into the first scene,
We get an extra luck roll if we're 14.
So my occupation is I am a photographer. The player is me, Rachel. Last name.
That's a question mark.
And then you did mention whether or not I might be foreign born. So how easy is it for a foreign born person to work in Berlin?
Currently, very, very, very easy. You could be
Right.
here with no problems at all. You could be here as a tourist. You could be here just working. As I said, the largest influx of tourists are Sweden, England, France, Turkey, and there's a lot of people from Eastern Europe coming in as well who are trying to set up permanent residence here.
I guess our residence is in Berlin. That's easy to do. That solves that.
It is in the Wicked City.
I rolled appearance and I got stout.
Oh, really?
Well done.
I think I will be. It's 1920s. I want to be young and naive, so I'm probably also 20s or maybe early 30s. I think I'll be 20s.
If you're between 20 and 40, then
Sorry,
the only effect that your age has on the game is that you get to make 2 education improvement tests. So both of you, yes, you do. Both of you grab a D100.
Yep.
And
It's one check.
It's one check. Thank you very much for confirming that. Roll your D100, and your goal here is to fail your roll against your education.
Roll over. Is the...
I totally did.
So you want to roll over. Did you roll over your
Oh
education?
no, I didn't fail. No,
You passed.
I passed. Did you fail?
Yeah, that's 95.
In
Oh, I
which
guess-
case, you could
I could get my masters.
You could.
Yay!
So roll a D10 and increase your education by that much.
10. I just bumped 10 points. I'm
So
85
now you're working on your doctorate.
Ah! Never stops.
You've been caught in the academic hamster wheel.
Does that mean I get a bunch of points?
Yeah, you get an additional. You get an
It'd be an
additional
additional
40 points.
10.
Because it's 2 to 40 points.
I was gonna put 40 points in something else.
Yeah, that's a really good roll.
Yeah,
getting
that was
advancement.
massive.
That's absolutely fantastic. Well done.
Do you have any points in? I put like points in everything.
Yeah, so did I.
Have a think about getting one of the alternative skills. I mean, if you just want to dive totally into the character, you could get animal handling.
I should.
Yes.
That was one
Where
of
is
the
animal
extra
handling?
skills contained. It's one of the extra skills contained within the investigator's
Do you-
handbook.
do you-
So you have to write it in. Absolutely. So you're good with.
I'm just gonna
animals.
put 40 points in animal handling.
Hell yeah.
What's
No,
the
that's
base?
great.
Like 5?
Yeah, put a base
Boosh.
5, so 45. Yeah.
Now
I
I'm
believe-
aware
I
that
believe
cats
it's-
should not have milk, and I do it
And you do
anyway. Come on, kitties.
I think it would be really fun to play not a German person.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to think of what would be. I guess English would
Austrian.
be.
The English, French, Swedish, very big, as I mentioned.
You said Eastern
Russian,
European was coming
Eastern
across.
European. You could also play one of the a member of one of the communities that sort of were part of German society, but not particular. So the Roma or Jewish or anything like that. Yeah. So. Spain. I mean, beyond that, I mean, you can play American. Huge influx of American. You can play anything you want. Obviously, I'm just talking about the
No,
cultures
yeah, of
that are
course.
suggested in the book.
Yeah. It would be Australian. No.
G'day.
Hello there.
Oh yeah,
Let's go peacefully protest.
exactly.
I mean, the first thing that popped into my head was French, but
already played someone that can speak French, and I've already written down French as my other language.
You're committed. You could be.
I kind of like the idea of being like, would you call it Northern Europe, like Swedish,
Scandinavian.
Scandinavian is the term I'm thinking of. I think that'd be kind of, because were they fairly neutral?
Well, look, in the coming, I'm actually, I said I'm no expert on the First World War. I'm even less. I know very, very little about the Second World War. Honestly.
Neutral ally.
No, but in the First World.
Yeah. They're referred to as the neutral ally.
Of
While
like
President Britain.
Yeah.
Because I think there was stuff. Yeah, they were theoretically a neutral country, but Britain pressured them to favour, so they gave some supplies to Britain.
You're talking about Sweden here.
Norway, I googled, but let's check Sweden. I did Google Norway.
Please, if you are educated in this area in which we are not, please give us some education. Ironically, we have a Norwegian speaker, one room that way, playing Tomb Raider.
They have a long-standing policy of neutrality, remain neutral throughout World War One. Yeah. Ooh, they were. No.
Hey.
Yeah, they were neutral.
Hey, listen, I need you to subtly pass me. We can't let anyone on stream know. I need you to subtly pass me my laptop charger. Which is on the side there. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the Berlin PDF. And that would be really bad.
You did also tell me to do this before the stream started.
Thank you very much. Now, I hate to be a pain. I'm going to need you to subtly plug in my laptop charger because you're where the extension cable is.
They don't know anything. Everyone be cool.
We'll be right with you.
Can you pass that across
sweet.
again,
What's this?
That's going to Jim.
Hey Jim, I'm just letting you know I'm plugging in your laptop.
Shoot out the stream. They'll hear you. It was really
Plug.
Thank you, everyone. Apologies for that.
Mainly apologies for the joke.
Exactly.
We're not sorry for the technical stuff.
Yeah, the technical. Anyway, so we're pretty much ready to.
Okay, so I am birthplace Sweden. There's got to be a place in Sweden.
Stockholm.
Stockholm.
I'm being 25
Malmö.
because I'd like to live out the fantasy of being a small business owner.
I'm going
at
to quickly
25.
generate
Sure, you go right ahead.
Swedish.
Are we 25 or are we 24?
We're 25.
We're 25?
Generator.
I've never forgotten my age before.
I know. Oh, I do. Post 21, it's just like, I don't know. It's a
but
year
I
that
always used to
happens.
think it was weird when you did it. I'd be like, oh, that's so that's
I'm a bit dense.
that's
though,
like
so.
yeah, it's such a weird thing that David does. And genuinely, I forgot whether I was 24 or 25.
The only reason I know now is because we went to the States and 25 is cheaper for rental and stuff. So we did that.
Right? Yeah.
I need to roll my name because I'm sticking with it. The only role we've changed has been gender, and we swapped that, so that was fun.
Oh, okay. So I've gone and generated a list of Swedish names.
Fantastic.
And
Very good.
They're all male. One of them is, and I'm not. I am laughing a little bit at
Just a tad.
the names, but this one is Percy. I can't read it out. Percy Spangberg.
Where? Which one?
20 Swedes on the channel right now.
Percy.
We apologize. I apologize.
It's like Spangberg, which is it's like a little funny.
Okay. Anyway, continuing on,
Oh, I need my name. Sorry.
I mean, I feel like I have to pick it now.
Roll,
It's calling to me.
is it like you roll the first one? I was gonna do odds first one.
I could be Jons Andre, or I could be
8.
Oscar Gustafsson,
Ooh, that's a good name actually. Okay.
or I could be Martin Lundberg.
What are you getting these from?
I literally just googled Swedish name generator.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Roll in the surname column of your choice, or roll once on each hyphenated name.
Torbjorn.
Powerful.
Mm.
Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2.
Well, I definitely want to be Percy. I don't know if I'm going to go with Spangberg. Percy.
Oh, I got Oswald. That's my professor's name. That's creepy, right? If I changed it.
You changed your name to Oswald.
I idolized them.
to fit in.
Jamie, I changed my name to Oswald. I'm super into animals. I'm the penguin.
Oh no.
I'm rolling that.
Please generate a name.
Oh, it's Miller time. Nice reference to that ad campaign. Actually, it's Muller. Muller? I I'm Elsie Muller.
Fantastic.
I am Percy. Give me 1 second.
Uptick.
I am. Oh, I saw one I really liked and I've lost it now.
Percy isn't Swedish, apparently.
Well, that's fine.
Per is though.
Well,
Which is.
I'm Percy now, so I'll just have a Swedish last name.
Is the-
I am. Let me decide. I think I'm just gonna go with. I am Percy Holmgren. Holmgren.
Holmgren.
Holmgren.
Google my name just make sure I'm not a real person. Elsie Muller. Oop, there's a Facebook profiles. Let's not click these. I've got an IMDb page.
Oh,
Were you anything good?
okay.
This looks like an asylum movie. You know those like really not good
That's
ones?
cool to know.
4.2. I was in this. It's called Mayday.
So I'm big, tall
Alright.
photographer man.
So,
I'm an actress now.
I think that means that everyone's characters are complete, unless I'm mistaken.
I need to write down that I'm stout.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for staying with us while we built this. This is how character creation works in Call of Cthulhu, and now you can see we're going to jump right in to the Berlin the Wicked City campaign using these characters that you have built with us, and thank you for your contributions. It's been great to have you here. We have a cool story that we're going to tell. Just before we do, one last time, could you please tell me your name and a line or two about you?
My name is Percy Holmgren. I was a war photographer at the Western Front. Let's go with I was a war photographer at the Western Front, and I came back and I have shell shock, or at least I have the shakes, and I'm not doing so hot. But photography helps me focus and feel a little bit of calm for a couple minutes a day. What I do, and we didn't talk about this, but this has been in my head. I was thinking I'm really into cycling around Berlin and taking photos and freelancing.
Hell yeah.
Great.
To all the various publications that have popped up.
Absolutely. So you work with all of these newspapers that have sort of started up all around the city. Fantastic. Great character. And yourself?
I am Elsie Muller. I run a bookstore. During the day, I have a little house. I think it's like above it and stuff. It's all kind of cute and quaint. There's like street cats and stuff that are around the outside. By day, the locals come in, they have coffee there and they talk about books and we discuss poetry and such things. But behind the bookstore, if you know the appropriate password, or if we get along well enough, I'll run you through. There is a printing press that is running a communist magazine which I help to disperse throughout the streets of Berlin.
Now, the two of you know each other, so presumably you've caught a couple of opportunistic photos at various points throughout your freelancing, and you've sold them to the organisation that prints out of the back of your store.
Bookstore.
Now, do you live on top of the bookstore, or do you have a house?
I live on top of it.
All right, fantastic. And so you two are familiar with each other. You're probably not friends, but you've met a few
We're
times,
acquaintances.
right? Is there anything else either
What's
of
your
you
name?
would
Sorry,
like to
I'm
say,
sorry.
or
My
shall
name
we
is
jump
Percy.
in?
You're Ellie.
Elsie.
Elsie. Close enough. Elsie. David. And I guess it goes without saying we will roll up a character for Jackson who can slot in
Yes, absolutely.
when he is back.
Percy, and your last name once more?
Holmgren.
Holmgren. All right. So, without further ado, let's jump in to Berlin, the Wicked City. It is Wednesday, June 21st, 1922. I got the year wrong, sorry.
It's fine.
The Great War ended 3 years, 7 months, and 6 days ago, but its memory is still awash in the city. The streets of Berlin are uncomfortably warm today, and some rain has sort of kicked through, making this kind of very sort of torrential kind of hot weather. It's a little grimy, there's mud on the streets, and the atmosphere of the city is not particularly healthy. As the two of you left your homes today and began to walk about, you saw more and more boarded up stores. The veterans that have been lying about on the streets for so long that everyone figured would be helped somehow have not been helped. They continue to suffer, they continue to starve, they continue to wave their caps at you, begging for money. As one of you walks past a bank, you can see the figure of the Deutschmark compared to the US dollar and the English pound. You know that as you get past, not 10 minutes from now, the number will have fallen further. Things are not going great, and already by midday and as the afternoon begins to settle in, you can begin to see elements of the city that are a little more seedy start to come out. The two of you are going to meet today as you are walking through the city and you are suddenly caught in a torrential downpour. As you are walking across one of the large squares in the middle of the city, suddenly the rain hits and you are both forced to sprint for cover. Can I get you both to describe what your characters look like as they hustle through the rain, desperate to get under shelter?
I am really tall. I'm gonna say 6'4".
Yeah.
5'4". Let's go with 4. But I'm really skinny, and so I'm just kind of a pile of limbs. I'm not very elegant, and I am like, I've got my camera, I guess, kind of. It's in its case thing, but I'm covering it with my jacket anyway because I can't get it wet. And I'm just kind of a pile of sticks.
Absolutely. Moving lankily, you dart across, and you are in currently Romanisches Square on the August Victoria Platz. Yourself, what do you look like?
Elsie is a shorter woman, and given her some money that she had stored away, and she runs a reasonably successful store and a legal thing behind it. She's a bit more fed, and she's still managed to she's not skin and bones like a lot of the rest of the city is. She's dressed a little bit for cooler weather, but she hasn't expected the downpour, so a lot of knitted things and things are just sort of sweating and sticking down to her plastered. She's actually very quick. And fairly dexterous though, so she's able to quickly nip under, and she's a local, she kind of knows the whole area, so she weaves under a couple of umbrellas and things, and then sticks to someone else who's making their way, and will spark up idle conversation with them. She's
Absolutely.
Very friendly in person.
Well, now the two of you have darted towards somewhere where you would both be familiar with. As you, someone who is affiliated with the left for the work that you do, and you, who is essentially the same thing, you have both darted into the Romanisches Cafe. Now, this cafe is famous as a haven for left-wing meetings. It's a meeting place, and it's where people of the left wing kind of hang out and get together. You two have basically just darted here because there are a set of rain shades that come out into a wide terrace. This is one of the kind of oases in the middle of Berlin, which is sort of dark and a little grimy, claustrophobic as European cities are, full of quick turns and the smell of urine, since the public toilet system is a little liberally used, shall we say. But this is a really leafy, nice area. You know that on a warm summer's day, a cool breeze would blow through here. But at the minute, there's just this howling wind, and you both darted in. And as a couple of other people are running through the square as well. You can see a small boy carrying newspapers, who is terrified his newspapers are getting all wet, and he's rushing across as some of them blow away. On the other side of the square, you can see two very well-dressed young women dart away to the corner of an awning under a shop. Those of you who are perhaps more streetwise, and since you have criminal elements, I'll say you, would recognize that they are both prostitutes. They die even out in the middle of the day around noon. This is a common sight in Berlin at this time, and they sort of dart over, getting out of the rain. You two dart over under the awnings of the Romanisches Cafe, as a couple of other people do, sort of shaking their coats. It's a very heavy downpour and you don't want to be out in it. If it's a cloudburst, it'll be over in a second. And just as you're about to figure you're going to stop for a coffee and, kind of sit here, you spot each other and realize that you've both been caught in this downpour and that you recognize each other. How would you greet each other?
I think I'm a very friendly person, so I would I proceed to kiss on each cheek. It's European, right? That seems appropriate. So I will, and you're tall enough that it needs a sort of and so I can step up on toes and peck you on each cheek in greeting.
Hello.
I think I am a fairly, I don't want to say closed off. I think I'm a fairly straightforward, not terribly overly flowery kind of person. It's a very, hello.
Yep.
How are you?
Now the tables, the cafe was pretty empty when you were walking past. But now that everyone has suddenly rushed in, it gets this flurry of activity and people start claiming tables. So acting almost on instinct, you guys want to have somewhere to sit down.
Yep.
You both reach over, grab a table, and within a few minutes you're both sitting with a coffee in hand. Or what do you both drink? What would you order in the middle of the day as you wait for a cloudburst to end?
What do people drink? I guess
There are libations of any sort available, but
Right.
this is a cafe.
Yeah.
Probably
Coffee.
here you're looking at coffee or tea or something simple, but and you can actually see the edges of some interesting places just around this square. Basically, there's some bustling cars and buses outside that you can hear whizzing past, and you can hear in the distance the steady dinging of one of the electric tram cars that crisscross the city.
Oh, there's trams.
There's a huge network of trams, at least at this time, and you are sitting in this square, and it's quite a bright and impressive square, and in it is just represented the duality and the sort of wickedness of Berlin, all in one place. In front of you, towering high into the sky, just behind where the two prostitutes were sitting earlier, is an enormous cathedral. Really beautiful, really nice. A good sign, even to the non-religious. This is a sight to behold. Directly opposite it, next to you, there is the famous Heaven and Hell Club, a speakeasy. Well, not speakeasy because drinking is very public and very common, but it is an establishment where one can see all kinds of wonderful things. And there are, to another side you can see the Malmholtz Movie Palace off to one side. It's a very busy kind of bustling area. Now, as the two of you sit down and start to sort of talk up, bring up idle conversation, I want to talk about two things that the two of you notice. First of all, the newspapers that are blowing around in the wet. Can I get you to both make a spot hidden check to see if either of you spot them? And I would like you to make yours, Percy,
Yes.
with disadvantage, and I'll tell you why in a second.
It's a good thing I bumped it up.
First roll
Yep.
of the campaign.
First roll. What did you get?
It wasn't a crit, but it was a
Ah.
double. It was a 006.
Double
Oh my
06.
god.
No, I only fumbled during that one shot. I rolled like a monster for the rest of it.
So you just roll a second D10, right?
That is the D100.
D100, that one, right? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, just to keep it fresh.
Frosh.
Oh, that was a
Ooh.
6. And
Nice.
oh, fuck.
You didn't
96.
fumble, did you?
Nearly a fumble. So
No.
we got 96 and 06, both ends of the spectrum put together. You get one more 6, things will be very interesting.
We are next to the heaven and hell.
So with that in mind, picture this cafe as we begin the story of a scenario called The Devil Eats Flies. Now,
Does he?
the newspaper is blowing along the ground and it catches on the leg of your chair, Elsie. You pick it up sort of half interested and just lay it flat on the table. It's pretty soaked and the paper is kind of stained, but you immediately kind of piqued, your interest is piqued by the picture at the front. And it's a picture of a man named Karl Grossman.
Oh, it's your boy. I know. Sorry, we don't know anything about this man.
If you were a local, you do.
Oh, okay. We know everything about this man.
You might not, because
I
you
forgot that
are
I'm not.
you are
Oh,
Swedish.
sorry.
But Karl Grossman is one of Berlin's most notorious serial killers.
Oh
Jesus.
shit.
He's an incredibly creepy man, and if the two of you do decide to Google him later, or if people who did Google him earlier see him, he's got a face that just kind of conveys this creepiness, harsh, with dark kind of brown, almost black hair and a mustache. He was a very, very creepy and dangerous man who attacked and killed a lot of young women, and he's been caught, and he's been put in jail, and he's escaped justice.
Oh,
At
wait.
the front page, it declares that he was found this morning dead by hanging. He has committed suicide to avoid the justice that would be inflicted upon him for the crimes he committed. And then there proceeds to be a lot of opinion pieces about, all these various things. But you kind of look and you can see a picture of the prison, a beautiful building with large columns the whole way around, and you can't help but think, what do you... Has Grossman lingered on your mind?
I've been following the story pretty closely.
You would probably be part of his target demographic.
Great. Yeah. I was a little concerned. I may have... I don't think I probably wasn't friends with anyone that was targeting them, but probably knew of them.
It was a sensational
acquaintance
story.
Of
the whole
acquaintance.
Of, the town really.
And I think seeing him hung, I certainly don't feel remorse for it. But and once I get the paper and it's spread out in front of me, I'm going to sort of just grab at one of the passing waiters. Retrieve the towel that they keep on them, and I'm gonna start pressing it down onto the papers, hoping to drain some of the water out so I can preserve it later.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna look at you as I'm doing it as well, and just sort of get your read on it as well.
Well, you've been a little distracted recently, and the reason I made you roll with disadvantage is because you have the highest power of the group, and that means you have not been sleeping well. In fact, anybody with a high power roll recently, a high power score rather, will have found themselves a little bit disturbed, a little bit set on edge. The city's artists, the city's priests, the people who are perhaps, as I said earlier, more sensitive to the goings-on that don't make themselves clear, are not happy. They're not well. Something is wrong, and you had a nightmare last night.
Did I?
Something really serious. You were walking into a crowded nightclub. Do you frequent nightclubs much? Are you a big party fiend?
No.
Then you had no idea where it is. You couldn't have said. It was a nightclub though, and it was, the perfect description of the vice that kind of fills Berlin at this point. The air was filled with cigarette smoke. There was people yelling. The atmosphere was very, very lively. It was a nice club for what it was worth. It seemed to be. A woman came over to you and immediately began talking to you, and you immediately knew she was a prostitute, and you weren't interested because you suddenly spotted a pretty Slavic girl at the back of the establishment, and you made your way towards her, and you remember sitting down and gazing at her and feeling this intense sense of dread flow through your body, and at that point you woke up covered in sweat, feeling terrible. Make a sanity test for me.
Oh boy! I don't know what my sanity is, I just realised.
Your sanity begins equal to your power.
Oh, that's handy.
So your sanity will be 70.
Yes. It's fine.
It's fine.
I rolled a
Almost a
one.
thumb.
That's a
A
crit.
1.
Yeah.
A 1 on a crit on a sanity test.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. That is a really good thing.
Is that
allows you to star an extra item on in your background.
Oh,
so
really?
how this works is that we rolled earlier your significant locations and all kinds of stuff like that.
Man.
And there is a cool little game where you get to put an asterisk next to one of those. And the one thing that you put an asterisk next to, I am not allowed to mess with without giving you a chance to save it. So I can stop you from... I can just say, oh, your camera breaks at any point. But if you put an asterisk next to it, I can't. So you get to put one asterisk next to it.
One of mine is Berlin. All of it.
Well, I can attack your connection to the
I
city.
know. That's going to be funny, though.
All
Berlin.
of a sudden.
I started with a soccer
Yeah,
cleats.
exactly.
Berlin is
so you
being level.
you get an extra star to put on something.
Neat. So does that include ideology and beliefs, or is that?
Yeah, I can take your ideologies and beliefs. I can radically change your characters. Do terrible things.
I'm genuinely taking Berlin.
Because I don't want to start something that's going to be interesting. Should it be
Yeah.
fucked with? I think I'm going to start my brother.
Twer it.
By the way, I didn't tell you. My significant person.
Yes.
I wrote down my brother Carl.
Yes.
He left my parents destitute in Sweden and ran away to, I guess, America. Can you do that?
Yep.
To escape the war. But I have heard he has since moved back to he's since been seen in Berlin.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna get revenge.
Like Carl.
You've been keeping an eye out for Carl, hoping that he will pop up. Now, So, Captain Fighter had missed the roll. Don't worry, we've got you. It was a 0-1. So, our fine friend Percy has gotten to star an extra element of their background.
Crit gang.
Now, continuing on. You look up and you've sort of been a little dazed. You're really fiending this coffee. It's going to help you wake back up and sort of get back into things. But as your eyes drift over to your sort of sometimes friend Elsie, who's using a napkin to press a piece of paper, she looks up and she kind of smiles at you, and your eyes drift down to the picture, and you see Grossman. You see the article, you see the name, it flash up, and down the bottom there is a small photo of the man. And immediately, you see Elsie, you see Percy kind of lost in a daze, and Percy, you have a vision. I want you to make a power check for how clear this vision is.
So I want to roll under it still?
Yep. This is what you want. Well, you're going to see more.
No, it's true. Oh, I'm just rolling one die. Doesn't help. Ooh, no.
Is that a fumble already?
It's a 100.
It's a 100.
From a 1 to 100.
How do you know? We need to get a dice camera because we're getting to the point where I genuinely don't believe you have.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
My god. Oh my god.
What does that mean
Kill
in this
him.
context?
Okay.
Did you die?
So.
He starts screaming.
Tearing
you-
up the paper.
So. You see as you all of a sudden everything swims, and you're lying in a bed, right? And you're completely naked. And you've sort of got your arms crossed and you're relaxed in a bed. And you're in a small apartment and it's raining outside. And at the window, there is a near naked woman, and she is smoking a cigarette as she stares outside the window. And you are watching her. But it's not you. Your body is completely different. It is a middle-aged man's. It is underweight. It is flabby. There are sort of thick veins bulging out, varicose veins, and all the rest of it. Because you fumbled, you suddenly have this realization that this is not just not your body, this is Grossman's body. And you are suddenly seeing things from his perspective. And a second later, you see the same woman, except she is lying on the ground and there is blood coming out of the side of her head, and you are leaning sort of over her, and in your hand you are holding a bottle which has just been shattered, and your hand is covered with gore, and you freak out. I need you to roll a sanity test. Don't fumble this one.
Swear to God. I passed.
Okay, you're just going to lose 1 sanity then.
Do we do
On a
tiers
pass.
for sanity? We don't do like
Success.
Success.
You don't really need to tell me.
Yeah,
Technically, according to the raw rules of Cthulhu, you never need to tell me tiers. I will tell you if I require a harder one, but it's good to know them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep.
So
Cool.
you see
Hello.
some kind of the images flash for a second, and all you could see was blood splattered bed sheets, and then you were sort of back. What does it look like to someone who would have been watching you?
I guess kind of with the whole like shell shock thing, I guess it would be kind of just like getting the shakes really bad and kind of just like shuddering a couple times and
Yeah. So, Elsie, as you're sitting at the table, you see all of a sudden Percy start to have some kind of attack. It's not particularly dramatic. They're not screaming and jumping up and yelling. And you have to remember this is right after the Great War. So you would be familiar with people having attacks of shell shock or something like this. What do you do? How do you react upon witnessing this?
We're in a pretty crowded area. People kind of swarmed in and they're continuing to do so as outside wind howls and the rain continues to pour down. I'm going to call back the waiter who I nicked this off, and I'm going to ask him if, do you mind if we head into the back room for just a moment?
Oh, yeah,
my
please,
friend here is...
Yes, please go.
Thank you. And I'm going to get under Percy, and knowing he's probably not quite with me at the moment, I'm just going to hold his hand, with mine slightly wet, pick up my wet cardigan and begin to just sort of pull him through towards a back room where he can sit down for a moment.
You kind of follow mutely, acting almost on instinct, and you get to a small back room. And this is a room where, on certain nights, meetings would be had between radical folks who were talking about ideologies. Of course, nothing that you would ever mention, but it's quite nice, and you're both familiar with the area. And there's sort of a couch, and you sit down, and you regain yourself, and you sort of come to your senses. You spot. Are you still holding the newspaper?
Yes.
Yeah. You spot
So
that you
you're,
maybe
now.
makes you slightly uncomfortable, but you're feeling better, yeah, and you have regained yourself. Is there anything that two of you say to each other?
Are you all right? Was it?
That man. He. Because I don't think I'd be 100% around it. I don't think I would have been following it. Oh, what did he? What did he do? What was?
Most recently, he has hung himself. But previously he, says it here, but he stalked women, killed them. He was a bad person. It's okay that he is dead.
Yeah, it's.
Some would rejoice. Some.
It is good that he's dead. He seems to have done more than stalked them. And is there anything really kind of in the story itself?
You sort of move the newspaper, and it will say immediately that he was a serial killer, and you can get the sense of that. Yes, he was a murderer. He appears to have murdered some people.
How many? Ballpark?
3.
Right. Okay.
Over the course of...
3 that is being proven, but no one knows.
I think if I'm kind of in the circle that rumors fly, would we be talking like dozens or?
You're in the circle that rumors fly. In fact, that's exactly what you are.
Less true than
okay, well, just you've said all the right things.
Okay,
Don't make
awesome.
a roll, which is something that is always good to do. You have heard the rumors are he sold the body parts. He sold
Holy
the body
shit.
parts specifically one as food. And he distributed them throughout the city, and he got people to eat them. That's how he disposed of the bodies.
Sorry.
That is that, and you can Wikipedia this gentleman
That is
if you have a strong stomach. This is a
fucking
rumor,
wild.
and historically, this has never been proven. But these were real rumors that circulated at the time.
A more tact person would probably quite not mention that, given that you're going through some shit right now. Elsie is not that person,
cool,
and she will happily add on as well in a conspiratorial manner. I've heard that some of the parts from the women that he killed were sold later, and you may have even eaten some. When did you last have pie?
Oh my god! How do you take that?
I mean, I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but
That was just shocking.
But you can't prove any of that.
No, you can't prove anything though, but people talk.
All of a sudden, you're interrupted by the waiter coming back, steps forward, and he seeing that you've been slightly distressed when you were coming in, and he's bringing a tray, and on it is a sort of set a nice plate with 2 glasses of elderflower liqueur.
Neat.
The 2 of you. Yes, and puts them down and sort of says, please, this is on the house, and sort of nods and walks off.
I immediately drink that.
I'm
Do you
gonna-
want that other one?
No, you look like you could use it more.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a couple of bills out though. I know he said it was on the house, so I'm just going to slide it under the thing and make sure that it gets back to where it needs
As
to.
you're about to put some money down, you see movement out of the corner of your eye. And you realise that you weren't alone in this room. There was actually someone else sitting quite quietly. And a man walks forward. He's wearing sort of a large coat and a hat over his head. Clearly someone who, is trying to, at least in some way, not be seen. It's equivalent of like the baseball cap and the shades.
Yeah, nice.
But he moves forward and motions very politely to you and says, "Oh, please, if you don't mind, you seem distressed. Is it you're feeling quite all right?"
I am recovering. Thank you.
I'm familiar with many people who still struggle with their experience after the war. Are you one of these people?
It's nothing major. I don't believe. I just the touch of the shakes, things like that.
I understand. Well, please, and he takes out his wallet and pulls out sort of an equivalent amount of money that you were going to put through and puts it down and says, "Allow me to pay for your drinks. All the best to you both." And sort of tilts his hat.
As he goes, I'll just gesture towards the paper. I'm a gossipy person. I like to talk. Did you hear what we were talking about?
He turns and his eyes dart down to that and back up to you. Can you make a psychology test for me?
Yeah, I'm real bad at this. As in, I have no points in it. I'm gonna spend 7 points of luck and succeed.
Okay.
Because why not?
Well done. Okay, so with a psychology test, you look at this person, and so first of all, it's not Grossman or anything like that.
I was
The
tiniest part.
There's always that little bit. No, this is a very tall man with kind of fair hair, and a big kind of walrus mustache.
Oh,
they seem
like
very,
him already.
very, very proud of. A little older, perhaps in their early 40s or early to mid 40s. And they look almost embarrassed, but then you see this glint of absolutely, yes, he was listening and he was very, very interested, and he kind of hesitates and says, well, yes, I was. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. Where did you hear the rumors you spoke about?
My sources are private. I'm not one to discuss them.
Oh, you're a journalist.
No, I would not say this. I like to talk. And you, it would appear, like to sit in corners and listen. I'm gonna just put my hand on the the serial killer, and be like, "You're not friends with this man?"
He blushes a little bit. You put him on the back foot quite effectively. Shakes his head very quickly. Says, "No, actually, I'm." And he's gonna roll something now.
And I'm basically just fucking with him for the most part.
He's gonna look at you and he's gonna get that.
Yeah.
He seems to be pretty good at reading people as well. And he kind of leans in. He says, "Look, I'm actually pursuing this case quite actively. I was actually hoping to speak to journalists involved in the whole affair, which is why I was hoping that you might be journalists. But if you're not, I don't want to trouble you. I'm simply trying to learn more about the whole affair."
What do the police have to do in the back of coffee shops?
Oh, I'm not a member of the police. And he kind of looks about a bit and then says, "Listen, if you both seem knowledgeable, and I have a deep trust for people who have served their country. And he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small card and says, if you're interested in talking, why don't you come and find me later today? I have an appointment that I have to rush off to now, I'm afraid. But I'd be quite happy to receive you, and I can explain to you this misunderstanding, and perhaps you can help me with what I'm trying to find. If you are able to provide me with any information, I am paying. I'm looking to hire £3 a day. That's very generous. That's
Really?
a really good.
Cool.
That's really good. And for what it's worth, he seems pretty well dressed. He looks like he's got the money to back it up. And he saw him open his wallet. In fact, yes, he seems to.
Got a little cashola, splashola.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take his card.
All right. So he hands you the card, and it basically lists an address, the equivalent of a suburb, which is like a square sort of over.
Mm-hmm.
And he nods.
Does it have the bloke's name on it?
Yes, it does have his name. And his name is
Colonel Mustard.
Colonel Mustard. His name is actually very, very clear, and absolutely something that I don't have to scroll
I'll roll
through.
2d10 and roll you a random name.
Exactly. No, his name is. Please provide me with just a moment.
Franz Eisler.
His name is Gabriel C.
Gabriel
C.
As in S-I.
You can roll a hard education test. If you get it, I'll tell you. You'll recognize where that name is from.
Oh my god.
It's not a crit, but it's real close. That's a 3.
Okay.
Easy success there. I'm
he-
smart as hell.
He's basically walked out by the time you sort of look, and then you make it a bit. I mean, Gabriel C. This is a little suspicious. Why isn't he putting his last name? Maybe it's something weird, like, and then the name Gabriel Kostancevich jumps into your head,
Oh.
and the title Prince Gabriel Kostancevich
Oh, what?
of Russia, or
Of Russia.
Russia.
currently in exile because the Tsarists have, and the Tsar's family indeed have been gunned down by the revolution in Russia. So he is technically, you know Gabriel Konstantovich because he's a significant political figure. He lives in Paris and he acts as an agent for basically pushing the Tsarist agenda.
Holy shit!
So this is like some spy level stuff kind of thing.
Oh man, wait until I tell people about this.
So he's bustled out at this stage, and you two are left sitting in the back room. You with just the slightest buzz from the taste of elderflower liqueur that has.
If he's a fucking czarist, and I sure as hell am not, that's like really big, isn't it? Is that as big as I think it is?
Well, it's not huge. It's not like if people find out who he is, he's going to get killed on the spot or anything like that.
Alright, like that's a piece of them. Like I'm
Oh,
not
it's
exactly
a good
high
piece of
anything.
information. It's equivalent to finding any significant politician was randomly here. You're like, what are they doing? What's
Sure,
their
but
deal?
and if he's specifically pushing a czarist regime and stuff.
Yeah. Specifically why? But basically, he's kind of within his rights to do that. He's basically he basically he fled the country and he's continuing to push through like the it's part of his family essentially, and he's continuing to defend his rights and history that he feels he has and the power that he feels he should have. So it's not like if you report him to the police, they'd arrest him or anything.
Oh, yeah, I'm not like by police though. I'm thinking like we probably have contacts with like Russian revolutionaries and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like
now that yeah.
Yeah.
That if you
We
that
print
angle-
a little red book in the back of my coffee shop.
That's kind of interesting, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, he's paying very well.
Yeah, friggin'
And
that would be blood money in some way. Huh? And he's got this from the working class and everything. Huh?
Absolutely, yeah. His wealth comes from direct exploitation.
His
right.
money comes from those that we are maybe sometimes trying to help.
well, you could think of it as we take his money and then we.
We use it to print the books that will tear him down.
I mean, you were tickled
Oh!
red by this
Money's
idea.
power!
I
Actually, that's kind of ironic in some ways.
So, the two of you sit probably for another 5 minutes before you.
I'm buzzing.
You kind of go outside. The rain is starting to dissipate. But you two still have two half-finished coffees, which you didn't bring, and you kind of sit back at your chair.
Cold.
Yeah, a little cold, but just the last couple of minutes as the rain goes away. Chat for a little bit. Are you both intending to attend this meeting?
Why do you think a czarist prince is interested in a serial killer all the way in Berlin when he is supposed to be in Paris? Huh?
Well, there is something that you allege this serial killer was selling people's body parts. Maybe there's.
Do you think he also bought parts?
I don't know.
Or possibly sold them?
Yeah.
He is in exile, and you know what people do in exile.
They are desperate.
Anything they want. I can't see why we shouldn't follow him up at the very least.
I'm going to take the card and I'm going to copy it across to a sheet of paper and tear it off and pass it to you so you have his details as well. Although I will write out the full name and I will add Prince at the front just so we're all clear on where this is going. I say, I think we should absolutely speak with him. I also think that a couple of photographs taken of him pursuing a serial killer will sell very well and possibly draw some attention. Huh?
That can be easily done.
Now, while the two of you are talking, I would like you both to make a spot hidden
That
test.
piece of shit better not listen to us. Oh my god, it's just extremes.
It's oh my god.
What did you roll?
98. But my spot hidden is my spot hidden is below 50, so that's a fumble.
Well done.
Hang on a second. I gotta quickly 22, 11. I success 2.
Nice.
So, on a fumble, basically here's what happened. You are sort of listening, and a time-owned danger sense built up through your time on the front kicks in when out of the corner of your eye you spot a couple of people walk into the square, strolling through the rain. These people are dressed in pretty militaristic outfits. They have heavy coats. They've got military medals across their breasts. They're all young men. They all look pretty aggressive. Some of them bear, there's an eye patch here. There's some pockmarked mustard gas scarring there. They're all wearing patches with a large Viking longship cutting across the waves on the side of their sleeves, and underneath there is a name that says Urhat. This is one of the gangs that you would so worry about, and as political people, you would immediately recognize this as a far right gang.
Oh jeez.
You spot them, but you can't communicate to Elsie because she keeps cutting you off. She's too excited. The fumble means that you just don't say. You're saying, and if you try to move, she goes, "Wait a minute, let me finish. I
didn't know this.
Basically, they walk and they get right up to the cafe, and then they start bumping into tables and spilling drinks and loud. They're being obnoxious. Basically, they start singing a loud song, and it is a common sort of German folk song, and they have replaced the words to be very inflammatory, very anti-Semitic.
Boy.
This is suddenly, and they are in a leftist cafe doing this, and not seconds pass before people are yelling at them back. You need to go, but Elsie's still talking. And you sort of manage to stand, but Elsie, you only sort of realize something's wrong when one of the lads gets up and sweeps both your drinks off the table and pulls out from his pocket a piece of chalk, and he carves a swastika into the middle of the table. Not with a knife or anything, he's just drawing it. And he's eyeing the both of you, and he looks horrible. This is clearly, you are both suddenly taken aback. What are the two of you doing?
I think I'm shocked, mostly. I'm gonna stumble back for a moment.
Back away.
You get up and back off, and he's looking really smug. He's happy with himself.
I'm not gonna start.
If you're just standing still, which is completely a reasonable reaction, across at the other side of the table, sort of down, as people are doing similar things, and one of the patrons of the cafe is not having it and stands up and throws a punch. And in a second, a street brawl has emerged. And this is the kind of thing that happens in Berlin at this time all the time. So all of a sudden, there is just this eruption of violence. A couple of people sort of rush across from the cafe. The waiter grabs his tray that he had with that served you not seconds ago, elderflower liqueur, and uses it to whack someone over the back of the head. And there's suddenly just a brawl.
Can I back away sufficient that I'm not engaged?
Yes.
And can I can't help it. This is what I do.
Yeah.
I have my camera. Am I able to whip it out?
Absolutely. This is exactly what you do. This is what you have trained to do. You step back, make a photography check for me.
Yeah. Where's my dice? There it is.
Elsie, what are you doing?
I'm quickly changing my skills because as soon as I started playing Elsie, I realized I don't want her to be a fighter anymore.
Okay.
And she's got 5 points, so thinks she's a little bit more confident than she is, but she's not a fighter. She's a talker.
Okay.
So quickly just juggling those.
Well,
And
a great system that I say is that basically until section 2, skills can be changed and flexed to fit characters.
so I get a feel for it.
And you were saying? So what are you going to do?
I'm going to. So how dangerous are these brawls? Is it people get hospitalized or people die, or they bash each other a bit, get a couple bruises, and they go their own way?
It's that.
So it's if I get
sometimes someone gets hospitalized, but no, people don't really die in these.
Because they don't have weapons or anything.
I don't.
I mean, you can.
I don't either. I want to find someone who's already losing a fight. And I want to gang up on.
I mean,
I want to just punch someone in the back of the head.
This is exactly the kind of thing that is happening, and you can see people are piling in. It's just chaos. It's just a brawl on the street. And you jump in and leap up, and suddenly you. So what did you roll for your photography?
A success.
A success.
Nice.
Roll a fighting brawl. No. Okay.
Not even
So
at all.
you sort of dive in. You start kind of swinging and hitting. You're kind of thumping someone in the back, but you're not doing much.
Yeah.
But you're in the brawl, and a lot of people aren't doing much. I'm going to roll a fighting brawl against you because it's going to be just consistent with in the brawl. Do you get and no. Similarly, that you inflict no damage. You may be you may be getting knocked backwards. Someone shoves you. You fall to the ground and get a scrape.
I
on
kind of
your
want to
hand.
be in it.
You're in it. I'll tell you what, you are going to reduce your hit points by 1,
Sure.
but this is just for being knocked around in general. Is there a particular thing that you want to say an injury you got? Did you get elbowed and got a split lip or fall over?
Yeah, I think it's like a push to the ground. So the fight's kind of spread. Has it gone outside on the streets a little bit?
Yeah.
I think we get out into the rain, and I get shoved. I slip badly, and I scrape, sort of getting a large gouge across the hand. And I get back up. And once the blood, once that stings a little bit, I think. If things are dispersing, I'm probably going to dip pretty soon.
Okay. The fight escalates for another, 20, 30 seconds before basically more people start crowding around and becomes dangerous, and everyone begins to sort of dart away. Now, what you do notice is that there is one man standing at the back who really looks like they're in control of this. They're standing at the back. They're very kind of officious to the point where at their waist they actually have a riding crop, like an on-side riding crop. And they, as things start to get a little bit dangerous, he walks in and he pulls out the riding crop and he whacks his own men. And sort of over the head, he's like, "Ow!" And if they turn off, and they all dip, they all just sort of run.
Holy crap! Okay.
It's not like he's not whipping them. But
Yeah, he's just getting them,
breaking
them out of it.
And he's saying, "Let's go." And as everyone darts, he sort of strides off, looking very officious.
Dick.
And he leans back and he gives this sneer as he goes, "Just another day in Berlin," and then kind of walks off. And as quickly as it started, it's gone, and the waiters are wiping down the tables, and people are returning. There's one sort of older man with sort of a shock of white whiskers who's got a cut on his head, and he sits down and he's brought some elderflower liqueur immediately.
Sure.
He's already talking and looking very happy, and it's suddenly it's back to normal. This is the city that you live in. This is what it's like. And you have a meeting in a couple of hours.
So it's later today, the meeting.
So, what does life look like for the two of you? If you guys have, say, 2-3 hours to kill, what are the two of you going to do? Where are you going to go? If you're heading home, describe your home. If you're heading to work, describe your work. If you're wandering around, what's your bike like if you're riding?
I have a bike. I have it's a big bike. I don't know. What?
2 seats. A bicycle
No,
made for 2!
I've got one of those little pods that they put kids in.
Oh yeah.
attached
Do you have
to
a little basket on the front for your camera? Ding, ding.
No, I would.
Why not?
I would keep it
They're
in straps
practical.
because then
I
it would
guess so.
get damaged. No, I reckon I'm going to be cycling around. I've got some assignments to do.
Punctual.
Is there some kind of political stuff? Is there some kind of not like a rally? But
There's always
Yeah.
something. I mean, you
Fight,
got a fight this morning. You'll get more.
yeah.
You sort of go around. You fill up your camera with a couple of other shots. You'll need to develop all this film, of course. It's so it'll take a while to get these shots ready. But yeah, you have a good ride around. Do you have a particularly expensive bike, or is it like a hunk of sort of crap you put together?
It wasn't particularly good. I actually didn't put any points into this, but now I'm thinking it'd be kind of fun. But I've upgraded it,
Oh, hell
and
yeah.
I've repaired it over time, and it has it has a thing on the front, and it's got panniers, and it's got a place for I guess not a water bottle, a
Flask.
tin, a
Yeah.
flask.
Yeah.
Like a thermos or something.
Yeah.
Man, I forgot how big cameras were.
Exactly.
They're still not personal. It's like a
Yeah, you need
little
to
thing.
Yeah.
You set it up
Yeah,
and-
exactly. Yeah.
So I'll make a note. I might put some into mechanical repair, but not
Hell
terribly
yes.
much.
Great. So you go around. You head around the outskirts of the Tiergarten. I'll probably pronounce that incorrectly, but it's a large sort of garden area that contains the Berlin Zoo. I told you where to come.
Oh, it's Australian Zoo.
There's kind of
There's
this
my other
nice
character.
The
The one taming the lions.
Exactly. There's nice leafy areas. You go past a couple of small kind of cafe houses where people would, there's like these bars and cafes that are really kind of basements underneath larger buildings. People are bustling about, and you sort of manage to fall back into your kind of calm sense of the city. But for you, it never really did feel right. You've got this issue that you brought back with you from the front, and you don't love Berlin in the same way that that Elsie does. It's one of her significant locations, and you're at home taking photos, not necessarily at home in Berlin.
Yeah.
Do you go home and dump your gear before you head to this meeting, or do you just head straight there?
I think no.
You're not dirty from fighting, so you can probably head straight
I'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
No, look, I wouldn't go anywhere without the camera. Yeah, you did point out. So they're quite bulky. They're not really something I could have strapped.
It has a tripod that you need to like.
Oh, you just set it up.
Yeah, you set it up. So you've gotten good at it, which is why I'm going to make you roll every time you try to take a picture.
You've got
of the
mechanical
dress.
repair, right?
Yeah, I got like 20 now.
Tripod rig on your bike.
I mean,
You could genuinely like a thing on the front that you could because the bike's got a little stand you kick out.
Yeah.
You can wheel it up. You have the camera on where the basket would be or whatever, and you can kind of rig it from that. And then if you want a more permanent one, you can take it off or something like a pull. Bring bring. Told you the basket's the best.
Okay.
So you head straight there. Fantastic. Have you got that contraption on your bike?
You know what? No, but it's a work in progress.
Okay, fantastic.
I've got drawings at home.
Brilliant.
Little sketches.
Schematics.
Love it. Elsie.
Yes. So I run this bookshop. I'm the only employee, and I don't know. Like I took time off to grab a bite. So I need to go up. If I can also, because I own it, I can do whatever I want. So I'm gonna go back and close it up, so I can go to this other meeting. So I'll skitter over. I presume this like square. Where the cafe is, would that be reasonably close to it? Would I be able to say like I'm in the urban sprawl or whatever, so I kind of hoof it along there.
Perfect. Yeah, you head straight along. You're in sort of the same area. At worst, you have to jump on a tram and take a couple of stops. You head to your store. What does it look like?
So it's squashed between laundromat wouldn't be a thing, would it? Oh, but like a washing place, like people are going to do washing, laundromat equivalent, something like that. On like one side that kind of looms over it, and the other one's an old like what were previously office buildings, but when everyone lost their jobs there, they've been like turned into like mass housing for people. So that's on the one side. My house is like a little thin building that goes up 2 levels, and then behind it has the double level hidden place behind it. There's an alley on one side that you can circumvent round to get into the like communist bit at the back, and there's also patrolled by alley cats constantly, so I'm able to sort of step around and let myself in without being seen.
You go through, you head back in, you come back in through the back, and as you come in, you can see, you hear a noise. You think maybe someone's here working a late shift, printing off one of the magazines, but as you go through, you realise that actually they've just left the printer on, which is fairly normal if they need to. But they've left one of the upper windows open, and one of the alley cats has gotten in, and you can see it standing above the printer. And you know if it falls in, it's going to get shredded. Luckily, they're not stupid, so it's not going to jump in. You're not in danger. But
Or
it's
if
more
it does, it will learn.
Exactly, but it's more like oh damn it, they've left it open again. I've told them 10 times, kind of thing. Yeah.
And you are an ugly little fellow. I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna get close enough. I can grab a little bastard by the back of his neck. I'm gonna say, "You will learn." I'm gonna bring him back. I'm gonna close the window. I'm gonna take him inside. And then I'm going to sort of drop him down on a couch or something.
Within a minute, he's just like so relaxed on the couch, blissed out. Like, yeah.
Little fellow. I think my downstairs, like it's one of those bookshops. There's more storage in the back, but it's kind of impractically laid out. There's a bunch of couches and places for people to sit. There's no formal place where you bring a book to buy it, because I will just talk with you, and I will happily take your money when you feel like the conversation is done. And it's a very it's a social thing more than anything else.
It's no Carrington Manor, but it's pretty damn cool.
Yes, it is.
I'm picturing, a pretty good image of this. That's
a
very
lot
cool.
of over like stuffed chairs and things. And I'll go around and no one's in at the moment. And I'll lock the door and put like the closed thing, and then get changed and then head to this meeting. I want to get there a little. Actually, I think I arrive a little bit late. I don't think I'm a very punctual person.
Okay, yeah.
So I
So
want to talk to people on the way.
you never miss a deadline. So you're there at the right moment, and you go outside, and
1:55.
uh,
Yeah. Because
Um,
I know all the shortcuts around Berlin on my bike.
so yeah.
All the uphill streets.
For extra
Fuck those
cardio.
ones.
Oh yeah, that's great. Actually, bike's a great one because you got high cardio, but like con and stuff, you could go
That's why
forever.
that's why I'm so fucking scared.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I have no muscles, only tendons.
so the place that you have been sent to is the Eden Hotel. And the card that you've been given is basically a temporary card that would have been made, which is basically I am in Berlin and I'm staying at the Eden Hotel. If you need to find me here.
Oh yeah,
which is
he would
something
get a
that
bunch
people
run over
would
it.
do
Yeah.
if they're thinking of a a longer term stay. So that's an interesting little tidbit to store away. You also and the criteria to know this is if you are both members of the Communist Party, which essentially you both are sort of affiliated with in that direction.
Yeah,
So you
prejudice.
would know, and I don't know if Ravioli Machine is watching, but if he is, he'll pick the name Rosa Luxemburg. This is actually the site where the KPD leaders Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg were held prior to their execution.
I got none of that.
Too
Elsie has history though, and not
Yes.
bad
So
history.
you would
Can I
know
have some
that.
context?
You would know that basically the Eden's Bar down at the bottom of the hotel is a very well-known sort of hangout for artists and dilettantes and writers. And basically it's a hangout for members of the sort of associated left wing who have money to drink at a very fancy bar,
Okay,
basically.
so it's left, and this guy's Tsarist, and he's just upstairs, is he?
Yes, which is odd.
A little weird. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
he's. just
Maybe
staying.
maybe he has changed his ways.
Maybe
he's
he got
changed his
lost.
mind.
On the
never
way
know.
to his factory or whatever.
Now, the rain has sort of stopped to sort of kind of drizzle, but there's a lot of water in the streets as you arrive. It is... we're in the middle of June, so it's nearly the summer solstice, which means it is still light outside when you arrive. And you spend a couple of hours. You know, it was around one or two when you had that sort of thing in the cafe. It's almost like 7:30 or 8 now. It's kind of, and it's still light.
Of course it
You're
is, yeah.
essentially walking around. You walk through the hotel heading towards the bar. You pass by this amazing smelling thing. It's a restaurant labeled American Bar and Grill. And you're kind of like...
Surf and turf.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Steak. They have steak.
Uh,
I don't know what they eat in America. Do they eat steak?
Yeah, it's a steak and chips only.
exactly.
I think.
Exclusively steak and chips. So you...
Red meat.
you head through to the bar and go up to the bartender as would be customary, and you ask, you say, I have a meeting with, you show the card.
His name is
Um,
Gabriel C.
Gabriel C.
I'm not going to give him away.
And so you set up a tab.
The bartender says, hey, you can charge anything to the room, room number 415.
Then we will have something reasonably priced.
Certainly, and he brings you both a drink, some description, and then you are both...
Beer, I
you-
guess.
Very good.
You both go up to room 415 after a while.
415. Bring our drink up if they let us leave with them.
Yeah, they absolutely do. So you head up a staircase and get up to room 415. It is a very large suite, absolutely beautiful, and it has this great view of the Berlin Zoo and all the greenery that's here. It's
zoo.
really, really great.
This is a
Um,
get
You can
more.
see
The
the
door is-
tigers.
Opened by this really short, sallow-faced man who's dressed as a chauffeur, and he kind of nods quickly, reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out 2 small canisters. He opens the first one and he holds it to you. It is a cigar box.
I'm gonna take it. Sure.
He shuts it, puts it away, holds the second one to you, opens it. It is a cigarette box. He's offering cigars to the men and cigarettes to the ladies because that is what he's been trained to do.
Certainly.
Do you take a cigarette? Or,
Of course. It's
All
free.
right. So
Do we
you...
have matches? Do people carry matches?
A little box or whatever.
He'll light you up cigarettes, he'll have
Yeah.
matches, and then he leans in and he says something in Russian.
What?
He grudgingly asks, "Can I get you a drink from the bar?" And he's eyeing your drinks that you already have.
I did not know there was such a... Yes.
Okay, the same again?
Yes, it's perfectly fine.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic.
What is your master drink?
Sort of stops and says, "My master does not drink," and then turns and walks out.
So many vices.
So you kind of walk through and you are left alone in this room for about 20 seconds, kind of just gazing around. It's big, it's sprawling.
Opulent?
Some very opulent furniture. It's really nice. It's really cool. And a couple of moments later, the prince enters.
Yes.
And he is now, if he wasn't
He's got the crown on.
well, he's not far off. If he wasn't going to tell you now, you would have guessed. He is in the full dress uniform of a
Oh,
cavalry
what the
officer.
fuck?
what a
He has the
flag.
large, buttons doublet. He's got little golden threads, epaulettes, badges, and everything.
Saber?
He looks like he hasn't got a saber with him. No. He is buttoning up his top shirt. He looks like he's just put it on for this meeting. As he walks out, the butler actually snaps into a salute, and he kind of
Oh my
waves him
god.
off. And says, waves him away and says, hello, my friend, thank you for coming to see me. And the butler, who is still snapped at attention, says, "Prince Gabriel Konstanovich, you will bow." Gabriel says, no, please, Fedor, thank you. You can be on your way.
I'll give him a little bow regardless. At least this.
Thank you. Please come in and sit down, please. And he motions with the two of you to take a seat.
So you are a prince.
Yes, that's right. I'm. Well, you've heard my title. I'm. Please don't spread it around too far. I'm traveling not incognito, but someone of my bearing does not do well if the news of my presence gets too far out.
This is a subtle home.
Yes, well, I'm not going to give up all the luxuries, am I?
No, I suppose you wouldn't.
He is talking to the two of you in German, very good German.
Cool.
And he smiles and says, "Well, have drinks been organised for the two of you?"
Yes.
Yes.
And he will produce a cigar himself and begin to smoke. And he kind of is very polite. He starts to make small talk, and he's very charming. And he asks how you are. He sort of dances around any serious discussion unless either of you force his hand for a couple.
He's a pretty sociable guy.
Yeah,
That's the
okay.
read I get.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very happy to talk with him.
Yeah.
And I keep on keep on jabbing him with a little bit of it could be read as a joke or it could be read as a dig. I think it's intended as a joke, but it's just a little, not mean but pointed, about wealth or about him being based over these other people. And
yeah.
I'm not trying to sour the discussion, but I'm just trying to I don't know. Maybe I'm not aware of the effect I have.
He takes it very well.
Yeah.
He really doesn't. He listens and he gets it.
Yeah, he's
You-
cordial, but he...
Yeah, he can see that he as I said, he's good at reading people. He can see that there's a little barb that he's choosing to ignore.
Good.
And after a while, he's going to say, "Well, I suppose we should get to business then. These are tumultuous times, and when you have something important to ask, something serious to ask, you have to get to it. You have to just do it." What Yeats said, he said, "Things fall apart," and he kind of looks into the distance as he quotes, "The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, indeed." He takes a big drag on his cigar at that point and blows out this huge cloud of smoke.
Would I be familiar with that, probably? Is that a
Make an
commonly
education
quoted?
test.
Ka-chow. Yep, success 2.
This is a poem from 1919 by Yeats, and the next quote is, "And everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." You can quote the rest
Yeah,
of
I think
it.
I'll hear the background and say, you're not the only one that can read.
Yeah, he seems genuinely quite impressed, and he sort of tilts his cigar towards you and says, "I knew I recognized a person of class when I spotted you." Takes another drag of your cigar and then says, "Right. Allow me to speak frankly. I am looking for someone. I am looking for a young woman. I am looking for a young woman who is very, very dear to me. And I am terrified that somebody else has found her first." And his eyes drift down to the table where he has one of the newspaper articles that show Grossman. He kind of looks down at it and then sighs and says, "You are no doubt aware of the great tragedy that has befallen my family. Those Bolshevik swine, they shot them dead, all of them. I went to the spot. I saw the bullet holes. I saw my young niece's diary. And the ironic thing, carved into it was her good luck charm. You know what it was? The same symbol they carve out there now. That doesn't matter. There is a woman in this town. I believe she was here at some point. Her name was Franziska Schansowska. Franziska Schambzka. That is not her real name. Neither is the name Samzowski. That is a name that was found written in Grossman's records as one of the women he killed. I am terrified that he killed one of the last members of the Romanov family, one of the last survivors. I need to find out if that's true, or if there's a possibility that out there somewhere she still lives. I am looking for journalists, investigators, anybody, and I'm paying £3 a day. And this is, an exorbitant amount. It's a huge amount. £3 a day, plus expenses, to anyone who can tell me definitively and provide proof, did Karl Grossman murder Franziska Saksonova in February 1920?
That was 2 years ago.
Yes. Things have been volatile, as I said. There's only certain times when you can, no one's perfect. That's what I need to know. Quite simply, can you help me?
If you have this much money, surely you can pay for the information. Ask the police. Put up flyers.
The police have not been useful to me. I'm in a position that makes it somewhat difficult to communicate with them well. I'm interested in people who can do some digging without involving the authorities.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, I am sure we can help. And I am sure we know people who can help. But this is a man who has killed, what was it, how many? Possibly dozens of women. And if the rumors are true, there could be no evidence left.
If the task was simple, I would not be paying so much. I know it is difficult, and all I can ask is that you try.
Do you have anyone else working on this presently?
Currently, no. I've not been able to find people that suit my criteria.
And out of curiosity, do we suit this criteria?
He looks at you and says, well, you are a charming person. You definitely do. And he gazes to you. And you feel in the back of your your head the same pressure that happened when you had a vision. And all of a sudden the shakes start and you're gone. You're standing in the kitchen. And there is a butcher's block in front of you. And it is slick with blood. And there are cuts of bloody meat stacked across the whole thing. And there's a human hand. And to one side, a woman's head. A different face from any of you've seen previously. And as you, in fat fingers, sort of pick up a cleaver and drag the hand forward, ready to cut, you flash back to the present. And he looks at you and he nods and he says, yes, you fit my criteria. And we'll leave the session there for today. Thank you so much for joining us. That is the setup for the adventure that we will be having in Berlin, the Wicked City.
Oh, man.
There is plenty more to come. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Rachel. You are wonderful as always. Thank you to David. And thank you to Jackson in the distance. We will have you back soon. And thank you, of course, to all of you wonderful people. Please tune in next week. We are going to be back here playing some more of this. We will also have this up on YouTube soon so that you can see it. Keep an eye on the Chaosium Twitter if you want to find out when that is. Thank you once again. We really appreciate it, and see you next time.